Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the First Realm podcast. I am being joined at the moment by Marsh, David Kakia Marsh, and I am Andrew Charlo. Say hi to everyone, Marsh.
Hello.
Hi. We will be joined in a bit by also Gregory Pizzuto, who you will see as Malta Metal or Metal Malta. I'm not sure which is his handle on which device. So today we will be discussing the point changes dropped by Fantasy Flight yesterday, and we will be starting with this. So first off, we will be starting with the generic points upgrades, so that we will keep in mind the we'll keep these in mind when we are discussing the specific factions. But before we continue, how are you doing, Marsh?
All right. I was pretty excited for these points. Well, everybody was, to be very honest.
Yes,
They had they had told us that they were coming out at the beginning of the month, and then
yes,
exactly on the day they said, "Sorry, we have a bit of issues. They'll be coming sometime in July."
yes.
And I was actually out when they were released them, so I was seeing them on the phone and waiting in the car.
Yes, and actually they have been released 2 days or 3 days prior to the actual announced release date, which I believe was 30th. So,
29th actually today.
so today, and they were released yesterday. So that's
Exactly.
kind of nice, allowing us to actually start discussing them on the day of release.
Exactly, and people going crazy list crafting and seeing what can fit in and what doesn't anymore.
Yes. Well, there weren't so many changes when you take that into consideration. Um, But on the whole, let's start discussing. So we're starting with the generics. Most of the astromechs have stayed the same. Actually, all of the astromechs have stayed the same. What is interesting is now in the in the upgrades, there's the restrictions, which gets me thinking that possibly they might be considering adding or reducing restrictions as a balancing mechanism. What do you think on that?
Possibly. I mean, for example, if we look further down here, hate, it has dark side restriction. Now on the card itself, it actually says dark side only, but as you said, it's a way they can balance things. For example, if they notice a particular upgrade is too powerful,
Hmm.
a silly example like I don't know, shield upgrade, and it's too powerful on like large ships, they can just say restrictions, small and
Medium,
medium
small
ship
ship.
only.
Yes,
It's a
precisely.
good way for them to um, regulate things which are being a bit too strong or oppressive or anything of the sort.
Yes, I would definitely agree on that.
And also, I noticed if there's even small icons here, like Vetraltane Guller, the restriction is
Rare
rear
arc.
arc.
Yes.
While it says that on the card, it helps it to have it written down over here.
Yes, yes, I would completely agree. The restrictions in and of themselves can be considered as a sort of cost, so the fact that they can be added to or reduced does allow them to balance it out a bit better. And if there is a
Hmm.
specific build which is being too powerful because of one specific upgrade rather than restricting all the upgrades of that type, you could restrict just that upgrade by changing
Exactly.
restrictions. I think it's something that is good to see. Might I ask that we increase the zoom on the actual?
All right. Sure.
Yeah, that's
How's
better.
that? Better.
Much better. So Astromex cannons and crew are all unchanged.
Yeah.
Now there are
Um,
some changes to devices, however, right?
there are,
Horsepower.
yes, devices.
Horsepowers have no changes. Gunners have
How
no
how
changes.
about we go down? Apparently, Agile Gunner has a
Yes.
change.
Agile
Agile Gunner.
Gunner and I believe Veteran Turret Gunner have had added the addition now of being restricted to to a type.
It's variable points cost.
Yes, exactly, a variable point cost. So Agile Gunner has a decreasing point cost the larger the base size for the ship, and same thing
Exactly.
for Veteran Tail Gunner, which means that Veteran Turret Gunner. Sorry about that. Um, so yes, so the Agile Gunner now has a points cost of 7 on a small base, going down to 6 on a medium, 5 on a large, and 4 on a huge. I believe it was 7 on everything before that, no?
No, it was well previously when it first got released, it was
It was
10, and it came down to 8. But then
yes,
last, uh, yeah, actually no, my mistake. It was 8, and now they actually put variable points cost,
yes.
so it went down on most
It went
platforms.
down on everything actually, yes. And it's
Exactly,
particularly interesting on large ships that it's gone down to 5, because that's a 3-point decrease. So having Agile Gunner could be a very good upgrade for any bow tie ship, I would think.
exactly. Especially like for example, Han Solo on the
I, I'm
YT
I'm
1300.
thinking even the bomber in the Resistance, any Millennium Falcon on the three
Mm.
factions that can take it.
Oh no,
Um,
definitely any gunner to be very
the
honest.
Decimator, mm, maybe something interesting for the Outrider as well.
Yeah, with the YT
It's
twenty-400.
essentially giving you one free action a turn. So
Exactly, yeah. Before I remember there were quite a few builds in Rebels where they used Luke Skywalker as gunner, and
mhm,
yes, he does give you a force point, but his ability used to rotate the turret provided at the beginning of the engagement, not the end of the turn.
yeah.
But it's a kind of weaker version of that.
If
Um,
you can
on the 20,
predict semi-effectively, or even s- effectively enough on the how things are going to be in the coming turns, I think at least one turn ahead. This just requires you to plan one turn ahead, which isn't so big actually. You should be planning
not
a couple of
not
turns ahead at the very least. So
mhm. But not only, for example, if a particular ship is double stressed, for example, it would be limited maneuvers. If a ship is ionized, more often than not, you're going to know where it's going to go. So
exactly.
it'll allow you to rotate your turret to an appropriate place.
No, almost definitely. And veteran turret gunner has also changed in the same way, and it's gotten more expensive on the small platform because it was 10
Yes,
previously,
it
but
was 10, yeah.
it's otherwise cheaper on all other platforms.
hmm Um, on the small ships, things which are going to be hurt quite a bit by it are, for example, the Y wings for sure. The Y wings for their double tapping ion turrets, it's going to affect them a bit. And for example, certain lists like Resistance, not Resistance, my mistake. Republic, with their Y wings, for example, Matchstick or Broadside, they're going to be affected by it.
Okay, yeah, I would agree, particularly on on the Y wings. And this is something to keep in mind also for the Imperial counterpart to the Y wing, which has still now seen almost zero play.
It has gone down in points, but we'll come to that
Yes,
in
we'll
a
come to
while.
that. Yep. So those are the gunners. The illicits, I believe, have stayed the same.
Indeed. Ah,
No, inertial dampeners was already based on initiative,
now
no?
the
The missiles,
munitions.
yes. Missiles have changed. At least three missiles have changed, right? Yep, there they are.
Yes. We
So,
have
cluster
cluster
going down by
missiles.
one. So cluster missiles have gone down by one.
Iron missiles have gone down by one, and also rockets have gone down by one.
Yes, rockets are now at 6 points rather than seven, and six
Hmm.
points for a five die attack is interesting. Yeah?
It is, especially considering, and this is a small spoiler, the new points for the TIE silencers. They become pretty tasty with them being at
Mm,
48
I'd also
and
look at the TIE Advanced V1, which
yes,
has seen a reduction in points cost on some of its platforms, but we'll get there.
yeah, exactly.
In the case of modifications, I believe there are no changes as well.
There are none yet.
And now it's down to bombs and mines, which I believe
Payloads.
have seen some changes. So the Connor net has gone down in points rather substantially.
Exactly. A small point of interest is that last points upgrade, they got all renamed to payload actually.
Yeah,
So devices, mines, and bombs, they're all belong to the payload upgrades.
which gets me to thinking that they might be actually adding some other type of device.
Which isn't a mine or a bomb or
Exactly.
something of the sort. Could
Yes.
be.
Well,
What I like
there
about.
is on the separatist actually, if you consider the buzz droids and
hmm Well, bus droids are, if I'm not mistaken, missiles.
yes, buzz droids are on the missile slot.
The
The this
DRK1.
Yep, the scanning droid.
Technically, they're devices, but yeah, they fall on the payloads.
Hmm.
But that's what I like about Fantasy Flight with their 2.0 X-wing. They have a bit of foresight and they're keeping things open just in case. Um, I think they said that it's playing space.
Yes.
They called it.
Yes, and they
So
have quite a wide playing space, and also we can see that corner nets have been added here to the hyperspace because there have been some minor tweaks to hyperspace legality, and this is the second one actually, because we missed diamond boron missiles being added to
yes,
hyperspace. So diamond boron missiles are now in hyperspace, as are Connor nets.
yeah. Well, sorry, I overshot. A lot of words over here, so it gets a bit confusing. But yeah, Connor nets are definitely in hyperspace now. Um, the electron
Hey
proton
guys,
bomb.
Ooh,
Ah,
hello.
Greg.
Hi, Greg. How are you?
hello. So, sorry for joining late. I
It's
was
okay.
following the stream anyway, but food was calling.
It's okay. And you just came back from work, so we understand. Don't worry.
Yes. So I'm going to pop up what you're seeing. If I may,
Yes.
one thing you guys missed was inertial dampeners because they
Inert.
did actually go down in points, even though they stayed initiative based. The
The modification inertial dampeners.
Ah, here
yeah.
they are.
What they did was having a look at it.
They seem
No,
to have
the
gone
illicit.
cheaper by.
No, they stayed the same points. They removed options for i7 and i8. That's possibly how it was written before.
Yep.
Because the way I'm watching I'm looking at the of the fleet builder,
Hmm.
which
Go on.
has how they change as well and by how much.
hmm
Okay.
Yeah, seems interesting. I have no idea why they had done Initiative 7 or 8.
Yeah, I just noticed that they had 7 and 8, even for Seasoned Navigator, for example, they had i7 and i8 as options before, and they removed them.
Maybe it's
Oh, well,
just a
But they're adding
mistake.
i0, wasn't there before.
Yeah, I believe there is a ship now which is actually initiative zero rather than null,
there,
which cannot do
yes,
these.
the scum. What's his name? G4R G0R or as most people call him, Gargor.
And he's on what
Oh yeah,
platform?
yeah.
Remind me.
He is the sick,
Ah, yes. Okay. Uh-huh.
the sick that if he gets after he defends, every ship at range 0 suffers 1 crit damage.
Hmm. So
All
yes,
right, we
let's go
were
on. We were on. We were going we were on the payloads actually.
payloads. Yes, exactly.
So now
And
Yes, that's
it's
right.
also the electroproton bomb has gone
yes
down to
by
11.
1 point. I still think it's slightly too much. It's delayed effect is a bit.
It's easy to outmaneuver,
Yeah, exactly. It's
although the effect is pretty good.
but
And
it's also
there's no
slightly
denying that the effect is good if you get caught by it.
random, so it might not get you what you need to get.
Yeah.
If you want iron tokens, if you want to remove shields, you might not be getting
As
what you want.
always, it suffers from the same problem that all upgrades that give you multiple things suffers from. That
Hmm.
you're paying for what you might not want.
You're paying a bit more for the ceiling, and the floor of the upgrade itself isn't that impressive in my opinion. Because if you just want
Um,
to dictate your enemy's movement, I believe most of the other payloads do the same thing or close to the same thing.
there's the reason why you would want to take electron proton bomb is um, number one, because you want to build a list around it. You do not take it just because you have 11 points left over or whatever. You are building
Mm.
your list around it. People lists that do take it are the sort of ships that have abilities that play off bombs. For example, one that I saw was the resistance bomber cat that says that when they perform an attack, they have an extra die if the target is between range 0 to 1 of a friendly device. Um, electron proton bomb with two turns of it being around means that it's going to be there for a while. So if you launch it anywhere near
Or,
one of these ships that has a 0 stop, you're dissuading the person from doing a 0 stop because he's going to get punished by the ship firing at it and punished by the eventual explosion
or
that comes along.
not wrong, but I still think in that situation, then you just take proximity mines and launch them.
Okay.
They hang around.
Oh no, for sure, yes. I mean, at this points cost 11 points. I mean, I think it's still not playable whatsoever. I mean, maybe if it went down to 9 or 8,
Yeah.
then
Yeah, let's
then
say
it
nine
might
or
have
eight
an
for what it does.
it
Sure.
might have, though still with what it does, 9 or 8 still might be a bit, because let's be honest, it's difficult to pull off, but when you pull it off,
Oh,
it
yes.
it hurts your opponent a lot.
Mm-hmm.
But it's one of those knife edge upgrades where you don't want to make it too cheap and you want to bring it
Yeah.
down as much as possible.
Yes,
It's
I will fully agree to that. And
I foresee that for this um, upgrade, they're gonna try and cheapen it to the point where it gets too cheap. We have one season of it being used quite a lot, and then they'll push it back up again, and then no one will buy it anymore.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. I think we're going to see it go down probably by a point every point change, just 1 point every point change until it reaches that point where suddenly everyone's taking it. Then they bump it back up by two, and that's it. Exactly like you're saying.
yes, I will agree to that almost definitely. Um, First of all,
Um,
we have a local enthusiast watching us, Dave Caruana. So
oh,
hi, Dave,
hi,
from all of us,
hi, Dave.
and
Hello.
let's continue
Through
with sensors and talents.
sensors, yes.
Passive sensors have had an interesting change, and
And an
almost
important one.
yes. And I'm particularly impressed by it because I like the fact that passive sensors tends to be better for lower initiative, and now it's gotten cheaper for lower initiative. but it's gotten more expensive for higher initiatives. So Vader with passive sensors has seen a 3-point upgrade here to its points cost, while any other ship which is initiative 4 or lower has a 1-point reduction in its points cost.
I'd like to interject just a moment and apologize ahead of time because there is the local feast around, so you guys might be hearing some bomblets going off in the background. If it's making a lot of noise, I'll try and mute myself if I remember how until it's time to speak. Essentially,
Oh,
Excellent.
it's the feast. All right.
yeah. There's the feast of Saint Mary in the background, so it sounds like World War II in back here.
Ah,
Yes, well,
um,
not much that can be
done about that.
done about that exactly.
Unless Greg, you want to go ask them to not do the fireworks because we're doing a podcast. Though I doubt
I already needed to beg them to let me into my own street to park. So I think that's enough.
it'd be pushing it then.
Yeah.
But yes, as Andrew was saying, there is a 1 point reduction in any one except for Initiative 5 and Initiative 6. And
Okay.
unfortunately, um, the reason for this price hike for Initiative 5 and Initiative 6 is responsible by to only one person, and that person is Darth Vader.
Yes, I will agree completely to that. Darth Vader with passive sensors has been, well, let's not say a scourge because he hasn't been a scourge really, but he has been,
He's been in a lot of top lists.
yes,
Yes, it also works mighty fine on Whisper, hence why the i5 went up also.
It does, yeah.
yep.
But let's
So,
be fair, the intention of this upgrade was always to boost low initiative ships to give them options. It was
yes.
never meant to be used on high initiative ships, and probably when they released it, they didn't even think about it.
To be
Or
very
they
honest,
did and they
no.
didn't expect it to have such a huge impact.
Mm.
I've heard it said many a time that now not directly from anyone from Fantasy Flight, but a lot of people who are close to game designers and that sort of thing, and they have said that initially they had wanted it for something for lower initiative ships, but unfortunately on Darth Vader, it's just incredible. It's basically um, allowing you to reposition with perfect knowledge. Because the problem with Vader is that if he meets another Initiative 6 and he loses the bid, his double repositioning is somewhat limited, or you have to do some guesswork with
It's a bit
passive.
lackluster. It's not as OP. It's just OP. It's not as OP.
Exactly. But with this on Vader, he basically um, repositions at the beginning of the
Of the
engagement phase,
engagement phase, yeah.
effectively giving him initiative affinity.
Yes. Also, Dave is asking which ships are Initiative 7 and 8, and to my knowledge, there are no ships which have Initiative 7 and 8 printed on the pilot card at the moment. There is Null, which counts as Initiative 7 until he gets damaged, but otherwise, all other ships are not Initiative 7 or 8. But
Exactly,
correct
and
me if I am wrong, guys.
to my knowledge, no. But even Null is considered an initiative
Zero
zero,
ship, yep.
and
Exactly.
and it goes to 7 when he's on the table.
In
Yep.
fact, the Initiative 7 and Initiative 8 point costs were removed now. They were there before. I'm
Okay.
assuming they're being removed because they were never there to begin with.
Yeah, because there
Or
was none and they thought they might be including them but decided against it.
Yeah.
it's it's the same problem when you had the 7B title come out. Because if you wanted to put stealth device on 7B, which was different points cost determined by its agility, people weren't sure until the FAQ came out. Which agility you take it, the original chassis or the modified? The FAQ did that as the original chassis, but the same thing with Null here. People might have been getting confused. It's the Initiative 0, Initiative 7. Which points cost should I take? At least this way, there's no
No
way to get
confusion.
confused.
Yeah, fair enough.
So, shall we move on to talents, guys?
Yes, definitely.
And I think crack shot change is a big one here
Yes, it is.
because
Absolutely.
crack shot goes up by 1 point, which means a lot of the I think the resistance builds were mostly using a lot of it, right?
I mean,
Um,
any build with a swarm was using them. For example, you used to see 8 headhunters.
As it just yeah,
95s, what were they?
C
Yeah,
exact
95s,
95
yeah.
headhunters. Yeah.
D95s with crackshot on all of them.
It's a
Doesn't fit
point.
anymore.
It's a back then it was just a point. I mean, at that point, if you had a 2 point bid, you would honestly just check which of your ships could take crack shots because between a 1 point bid and a 2 point bid, there's no big difference. And resistance, we're using it a lot on their A wings. Um,
Yep.
I am personally of the school of thought that if I had to pick between Crackshot and Heroic beats it down hands down because I like the emergency button that it gives you. But um, if you had the slot, the points available, the next thing I would put on
It's crack shot.
an A wing was Crackshot.
Yes,
Now at two
definitely.
points, I honestly consider not taking it.
Yes.
Before it was a
Yeah,
no-brainer.
I think before Crackshot and Heroic were just stapled to the Ray Wings.
Exactly.
I mean, because they have 2 talent slots, so they just take both. Why not?
And
Exactly.
while we're discussing this, let's go on to saturation salvo because it's interesting that it's gone down in points. I believe it's just 1 point, but this was a talent that has barely seen any use.
Yeah, it's
Um,
gone down by 1 point.
and it's gone down by 1 point. With missiles going down in points as well. So
To be very
Interesting.
honest, I don't think you will see it that much more.
it's an option
While
that is available, but as you say, I also don't think it will be seen a lot.
exactly, just in case the listeners are wondering what it does, basically it's a EPT that you need reload for it. EPT is elite pilot talent, and basically it says while you perform a torpedo or missile attack, you may spend 1 charge from that upgrade. If you do, choose 2 defense dice. The defender must reroll those dice.
Yep.
Now, in a vacuum, it's a pretty decent ability, especially there's a couple of munitions that have 4, and I think there's even one that has 5 uh, charge charge on it. But for 4 points, I don't particularly like
It's
it.
it's not something that a lot of people will be using anyway. It's an interesting option, but I don't think it will be seen a lot.
I would
It,
honestly,
it's limited to 2 fuel ships, and those ships want other things.
exactly,
Yes.
it's limited to the ones that have reload. And I'll be very honest, I'd rather spend 1 point for munitions failure that if I do not get a good dice roll, I just
Yeah,
cancel my dice and get my charge back.
Mhm.
yeah, absolutely.
So, something also which is interesting is that marksmanship has also been added to hyperspace, so more options for hyperspace at least,
To be
which
very
Hmm.
was
honest,
very
I think
limited
the
in
A wings are
hyperspace.
going to take marksmanship over crack shots.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, at this point, yes.
Um, that's it with talents. In regards to tech, the only change is to targeting synchronizer, which has gone down in
Snapshot changed in talents.
Indeed, it has.
Snapshot went
snapshot.
up by 1 point for small, medium, and large.
Snapshot. Ah, yes, because it became. First of all, they added the huge option now to it, so huge ships can take it, and
Yes.
it
And
did
before
go
it
up to
was
one
7
point.
for small, 8 for medium, 9 for large.
And
It
now
went up
it's
by one
8,
point
9,
for each
10,
of them.
and 12 for huge. Yes.
Exactly. And one small thing I'd like to say to any listeners, we apologize if we miss any of them, but unfortunately, there have been some mistakes done on the Fantasy Flight PDF.
Yes. For
Because
instance,
unfortunately,
snapshot is not marked as having had any changes when it has.
exactly when it has. And
Yes.
the ones we've managed to pick up on have been some other people on other streams that have eagle eyes and or have memory that remember all the points cost and were able to pick up on
Yes,
tiny
and
things.
something like snapshot, which isn't used much. So yes.
Exactly.
Um, but as I said, attack only saw a change in targeting synchronizer, which is interesting. It's a 2 point
2 point
decrease,
change.
and it's now hyperspace legal as well.
Yes, indeed.
It's an interesting upgrade to be sure. Um, Again, on some what munition carriers can take a tech slot?
I believe the first order ones, the SF, the TIE SF,
SF,
and the I believe the Upsilon.
and I suppose X-wings as well, the Resistance X-wings. But to be very honest, I think there are advanced
Better
optics
options for them.
is better spending your 4 points.
Yes, and technically speaking, the TIE silencer, the but remember what the targeting synchronizer does. It allows you to have a target lock on one ship and all the other ships not needing it, so they can still fire their missiles. So
Maybe there's room for one of them now.
yes, maybe you can fit in one of them like that at 4 points.
True. My issue with the upgrade has always been though the same thing as instinctive aim for the force slot.
Hmm.
That yes, you forego the need for target lock, but if you end up rolling bad
Like,
dice, you can't
yeah,
reroll anything.
you don't get the mod for it. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
And
Yes.
that's my only stickler with these two upgrades, instinctive aim and targeting synchronizing, because you're spending points on a gamble,
Yep.
Yeah, it
which
should be considered a backup, but not your game plan.
exactly, and at that point, spending
And at
four
that
points on a
point, don't
backup.
spend the points on it. Yeah.
Yes.
I
So
mean, I understand
But
conceptually, and it's
but
a
wait,
cool
wait a
idea, but
moment. We're saying it shouldn't be your game plan, but if you consider the option of having, for instance, TIE SFs with an Upsilon and having or a TIE silencer or actually any of the TIE fighters, because you could have Midnight with targeting synchronizer. And he's not removing his target lock, so his target lock is simply providing fuel for the missiles on the TIE SFs to be fired. Or we need to consider the TIE silencers now because we could easily fit two generic TIE silencers now, but let's not get
mhm,
ahead of ourselves. Let's
exactly.
go
Hmm.
on to torpedoes.
What where this would be good is in a list where your ships can natively re-roll themselves. I know it doesn't work in the same list, but an example would be like Han Solo's ability where he can re-roll dice, or Lieutenant LeHugh's who can re-roll with other someone else's target lock.
Yep.
If you have native re-rolls, it's a good upgrade to be
Yeah,
very
it would be.
honest.
This would be amazing on, say, Sinker. A
Hmm.
Sinker with this thing, and then a bunch of Gold Squadron pilots with rockets.
And I
But
believe
it's not going to happen, is it?
there's also a couple of ships on Scum and Villainy which can take it. So something to keep in mind. Let's look at torpedoes, guys.
Mhm.
So most torpedoes have gone down by 1 point, except the
Hmm.
proton torpedo, which stays at 13. I believe the
Which
proton
our
torpedoes have always been effective, and it's fair enough that they stay where they are.
exactly. Much to our listener Dave Caruana's chagrin, this has remained at 13 points because Dave absolutely adores proton torpedoes on X-wings.
But let's be honest, they are at their sweet spot. They're at that points cost where um, uh, it makes you think about taking them.
Yes,
Exactly.
Because if they're any
yes,
cheaper, they're an auto include.
they're no longer
Yes.
a no-brainer.
When they first came out, they were 9 points. They were
Yeah,
auto includes.
And even at 12 points, they were seen still on most lists that could take at least one of them. Um,
Exactly.
However,
At
plasma
13,
torpedoes going down to 8 points is interesting.
very
yes.
interesting.
Advanced proton going down to 5 points is interesting.
especially
So,
since plasma torpedoes have actually been seeing some play.
yep.
So I was surprised when I saw they got a points drop.
So, what's next after torpedoes?
And dorsal turret, I believe.
Yes,
Went
which
down.
has gone down by 1 point and is now hyperspace legal.
Exactly. Um, this will definitely help Tigressers.
Yes.
Um,
Y
they need all
wings?
the help they can get.
Yeah,
Y wings, although they prefer the iron turrets, but at
Hmm.
this point, beggars can't be choosers.
Yes.
It's very good. You see it very often used on the box it comes in with the ghost.
Yes.
Having another arc is very helpful,
Of course.
always.
especially when a lot of the times you end up having Zeb on the ship as well, so you can bump into something and still shoot at it with a dorsal turret.
Yep.
Um, but yes, I'll be very honest. At 2 points, it's a good enough upgrade. Um,
Yeah, it's fair enough at two
it's
points.
exactly. Let me just remind myself.
It's just
Turret.
a two attack range 1 to 3, I believe.
1 to 2. To
One to
attack
two, yeah,
dice range 1 to 2.
1 to 2, yep.
exactly.
Yeah,
One
no,
to
So,
more
two.
than fair enough.
shall we go on to rebels, guys? Because it
All
seems that
right.
we've exhausted the generics.
Let's.
Let me
Zoom in,
just see.
Marsh.
Exactly. I just want to check how much. 150%.
So, rebels. Here we are.
Mhm.
Rebels. How
So,
there are
quite unsurprisingly, the B Wings have seen no change whatsoever. The Ark has seen no change whatsoever. The attack shuttle has seen no change whatsoever. And now we have.
as it
Did you
talks.
guys notice that the Force users have added the keyword light side and dark side,
Exactly.
Yes, yes.
which now finally allows for dark side only upgrades to make sense? And maybe we'll be seeing. No, there is a light side only upgrade. I think there
Permit me a
is
second.
one
Let me
light
just
side
check
only
something on the
upgrade.
other one. Yes. On the generics, we have restrictions, and on the normal points, we actually have builder keywords.
Yes.
Yes, which is a good step forward.
Exactly. Because some fan theory crafting I heard was um, someone had asked, but why doesn't Barriss Offee, the Jedi Padawan of Luminara, why is she light side? Isn't she
Yeah, doesn't
dark
she
side?
like turn to the Sith at some point?
She
Yes.
spoilers for people who haven't watched this far into the Clone Wars, but it's been I don't know how many years, so I think it kind
Too
of
late.
exactly. Um, he orchestrates the bombings and frames Ahsoka
Yep.
for it basically, and she uses red lightsabers as well. So I don't know how much more Sith you can
Dark
get
side you
other
can
than
get.
using
Yep.
red lightsabers. But if they want to, for example, they can actually say um, build a keyword dark side
Barasofi. Yeah,
next
it's
to Varys
doable.
office. Now it's totally doable.
Yep.
And if they want to do some new other builder keywords, for example, like Scum, if they want to do the crime cartels, for example, Black Sun, they can.
Yep.
It's interesting.
It's very interesting. Um, Also, moving on, the Azatak has seen a decrease in points across the board. So a 2 point decrease for Wolf Warrow and the Kashyyyk Defender, and a 1 point decrease for Lorik. It's
Yep.
Exactly.
not seeing much play, so it's interesting, but I'm not sure if this will be enough to get them to see play.
Mm, it's a difficult sell, especially with Wolf Warrow, because Wolf Warrow is a bit self-destructive, his
Mm.
ability, if I'm not mistaken.
And at
Um,
54 points, there's a lot better options for the rebels.
Yes,
Now, don't get me wrong. They are beefy ships.
they are very beefy ships, but there are better options, as Greg said.
Exactly. I mean, their main selling point is their 180-degree arc. Basically, if you're anywhere in its front,
Yeah.
you're getting shot at. Obviously, at range 3 maximum, but 6 hull, 2 shields, and it has a reinforce as well.
Yes, it can be quite beefy. And a 3 attack, I believe, no?
Three
Yes, 3
attack.
attack.
Speaking of beefy ships, the Y-Wing has seen no changes whatsoever, but I think it's performing admirably on at least 3 or 4 platforms, so
The only ones you usually see are Dutch
Dutch.
and maybe sometimes Nora. But usually Nora, you see her more on the arc
On the
than on the
arc.
Y-Wing.
Yes, but
Yeah.
also the Grey Squadron Bomber and the Gold Squadron Veteran have seen some play, so it's not
Yeah,
um it's
all
not a
doom and gloom.
ship that actually it's probably where it should be.
Where it should be. Yeah, I agree.
Because after you put veteran turret gunner, which is 12 points, and iron turret, which is another 5, you're looking at an extra 17, 47 points. So you can
What
fit.
maybe could have seen some points decreases were Horton and Evan.
Because they've seen no
But I
play
think they're
whatsoever. But at
because
the
they see
other
no play, right? But
on
at
the
the same
other
time,
hand,
if you put
there
a single point increase on Dutch, it's gonna stop seeing play altogether.
no, but
So
let ignore that. If you decrease their points by much more, they're already close to the Gold Squadron Veteran.
yes, they're very close. I can't argue that.
So
And you don't
perhaps
want to
it
reduce the
is
points on the Gold Squadron Bomber and Veteran.
the K-Wing has seen a change on Miranda Doni.
Yes, a 2 points change.
Indeed, a 2 point change on Miranda Doni. And maybe that will allow the K-Wing to attempt a resurgence, but I'm not sure about that anyway.
I mean, still realistically, you want the K-Wing, you want it cheap, you want it doing what it does best, so you just take the Warden pilot anyway.
Though
For
there
two
have been.
points, you might consider Dhoni.
Yes, you might
Mm,
consider Doni, and that
Dhoni has not been seen anywhere, to be very honest.
Mm.
I'll be very honest, I've seen some interesting lists with Sege Toketo and the two orcs, Shara Bay and Garvin Dreas,
mhm.
where basically it's a lot of focus sharing.
Mm. Okay.
Basically, you would have a Sega with barrage rockets out to the front, and you have the turrets to the side, so you have 3 arcs for attacking, and a Sege or a Sege lets you basically use his focuses. He would have Perceptive Co-Pilot, and the other 2 arcs are Garvin transfers focuses when he spends them, and Shara Bay can spend target locks to add focuses to her defensive and offensive dice rolls. So it's a whole load of focus sharing. And as
Yeah.
well in the list, there's Jake Farrell, who also
Just
gives
gives
focuses.
focuses. Yeah, makes sense to me.
Yes, I would agree. In my opinion, it's an interesting change. What is a more interesting change is the E-wings going down in points
Oh
completely.
yes. The
So
E-Wings
Corran
are a
Horn
massive
and
change.
the Rogue Squadron Escort are down by 2 points, and the other two are down by one
By
point.
one.
They are still not hyperspace legal, but I think they are close to being usable now. It's quite an
Yes, they're definitely
interesting
getting
change.
there.
They're getting there, but I still think I think that a lot of people are going to jump on them because shiny new toys, and they're
And
going
they
to
are
enjoy.
beautiful ships.
I actually don't look too much of a fan of the ship, but I like the role that it
No,
should
I
have.
mean, in terms of, like 3 attack dice, 3 evade dice, 3 hull, 3 shield. What more
I
do you
thought you
want?
meant aesthetically.
Yeah, yeah.
No, aesthetically, I don't like it at all. It looks like a triangle, and that's it. A paper plane. But I think a lot of people are going to jump on it because shiny new toys, and they're going to try lists with 4 naves, and they're going to find that it's a bit lacking, and maybe they'll reduce it down to 2 with something else. There's going to be a lot of
There's going to be some
evolution of,
experimentation, which is the whole point of this,
definitely.
after all. Yeah.
Yes.
No, no, for sure, for sure. I just am concerned that it might still not be enough.
I
We're
think
just going
it's
to see a.
close. It's close, and that's good.
At the same time, how much cheaper can you really get a ship with
No,
that,
no, of course, of
that
course.
line?
No, definitely.
You can include 4 of them, which is particularly impressive already. So,
Hmm.
mhm. Moving on. So, the Hawk. The Hawk has seen quite a few changes. There's Kyle Katarn and the Rebel Scout, which have gone down by 1 point. It's not
Yes.
much to talk about, to be fair, but it's not seeing much play, and it's an interesting change. We'll wait and see. I believe that there's not much else to say here.
Hmm.
I find
Unfortunately,
myself,
it's more of a support ship than anything else, and you have to invest quite a few points in it for to make it work very, very well. And
Mhm.
at the end of the day, unfortunately, it's only a small ship with I think it only has 5 health in total,
5 or
Three hull and 2
6,
shield.
so
3 hull, 2 shield, and it's only got a 2 shot turret, 2 evade dice. No, it's a bit lackluster.
yep.
It is a bit lackluster, and unfortunately, like you guys are saying, how
And
much cheaper
even
can you make a ship?
all its abilities are red. It gets, it's always stressed.
It gets stressed quickly, yes. So, the
But
modified YT1300
here,
or the
here I
Millennium
was
Falcon.
really surprised to see them all going down in points.
Yes, but it's not seeing much play despite wishes otherwise, so I was expecting a downgrade in points. And actually, the Outer Rim Smuggler stays at 67, which is the point cost to avoid having 3 of builds possible.
Exactly. Good.
Yes, I know, but I really do think they should have done uh, what was suggested on Gold Squadron podcast, that the cheapest generic pilots become cheaper, but with 2 pips. So you can never have more than 2 anyway. That lets you have two um, uh,
Out,
two
outer rim
Falcons, two
smuggler.
Millennium Falcons, and some other generic. It lets
I
you get.
I would agree. There's also another change which we need to take into consideration. The mod slot um, on, I believe, Han Solo, we have an extra modification slot, and we're losing an illicit slot here. So,
But that wasn't the last one.
That was last one, yeah.
was in the last one or in this one?
Yeah,
In fact, the illicit slot was removed on all of them to stop Handbrake Han.
exactly.
To stop inertial dampeners, I believe. No.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Handbrake Han,
Mm,
where you would basically continuously recharge the shield with R2D2, and you keep on doing 0 stops
hmm.
until the cows come home.
Yep.
Um,
Um.
what Greg is saying about the 2 pips, um, yeah, Ryan had suggested regarding the defenders, which I wholeheartedly agree with. Having 3 defenders on the board would be a bit too much.
But
But
Yeah.
still, if you take it into consideration, you don't have the ability to have 3 Millennium Falcons. That's true,
no, no, no,
but they are
definitely
cheap enough at the moment to have two
to.
of. So you could have, for instance, let's say Chewbacca and Lando, and you could still fit in as that 95 blocker there and have options for some upgrades. So
Oh no, no, I actually have made a list with Han Solo and Lando already. It's perfectly doable, and
no,
you
no, it
don't.
is
No,
perfectly
no,
doable.
he means we're talking about two freighters and a third ship.
So it's entirely possible, which is also something that I think can be done now with the TIE Defender. But let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Exactly.
Something
Yeah,
I'm noticing here is that Leia Organa has neither the light side nor the dark side
Not dark
keyword,
side, yes.
which is I think interesting. But it does make sense as she is kind of neutral in the original trilogy. She was still very much just a force sensitive, so not light
Um,
side or dark side
yeah,
at all.
yes, but at the end of the day, we're dealing with points and rules. To have it written down would have been helpful. Even,
No,
for
no, she
example,
takes
Luke.
none of the upgrades. She can't take light side upgrades. She can't take dark side upgrades. It's very simple. You don't have the keywords,
exactly.
you don't get any. I think it's completely straightforward.
Uh, but then what's the harm in just doing light side then?
Then she can take light side upgrades, which she doesn't. She can take none of them like this, which is the same with Luke. He
And
can
what's the
take.
point of giving her a force slot?
She has.
She
There's
does.
all the
There's
generic
already
forces. She
generic
can take
force
anything,
upgrades.
but just not light or dark side upgrade. So she can't take
Exactly.
hate,
She
and she
can't
can't take
take.
whatever the light side upgrade is, which I can't remember right now. I don't
There
think it
isn't
sees
one.
much play.
Yep.
Fair enough. I mean, for future, but right now they could have just put it down because there's no specific light side. There's one specific dark side.
I think there is one specific light side, which I really can't remember.
I'm gonna have a look. You guys continue quickly. I'm
Yeah,
going
yeah, yeah,
to
definitely.
have a quick look, see if I can't find the light side
Reg-
upgrade, what it is.
regarding the YT 1300, they had in their article that came with the points actually said that they want to try and further help large base ships. So you're seeing points decreases on the YT 1300, the Falcons, both Resistance and Rebels,
Hmm.
on the 2400, the one that Dash is on, the Star Fortress, the Resistance bombers. They're trying to help the larger ships because, unfortunately, except for a few here and there, you're not seeing a lot of them.
Yep.
I mean, I can't even remember the last time you saw a ghost in a high-ranking table at a big event.
I think it was X-Wing 1.0.
Yes.
So the A-Wing hasn't changed, not much to discuss.
Hmm.
The Sheetipede is interesting as two ships have gone to hyperspace and have gone down in points. So Zeb and Ezra in the Sheetipede have gone down by 1 point, sorry, by 2 points and 1 point respectively. Zeb by one and Ezra by two. Um, it's interesting. Maybe we'll be seeing the Sheetipede a bit more on Zeb and Ezra. I don't think so, but
It's very interesting because the Sheathipede, when it's docked inside the Ghost, it allows the Ghost to do a free coordinate action.
I believe the free attack from the possibility to attack from behind with the attack shuttle is much better, and also
Oh no,
unless
no, for sure, but it's
and it's
exactly
also
while
cheaper.
while you are docked, your carrier ship gains coordinate. Before your carrier ship activates, it may perform a coordinate action.
Well, equally cheap. It's 32 points for the cheapest pilot, so no.
Mhm. So AP5, you want him out because
Yes.
AP5's coordinate is very good.
No changes to the X-Wing. We've seen quite a few of the pilots see play, even some generics, so completely
Exactly.
understandable there. The TIE fighter has seen some reduction in points cost, which also makes some sense. It doesn't see much play in and of itself.
And it will continue to not see much play
I don't think it fits well within the Rebel list. You just add it on for fun, I believe, but
either for fun or because you want the model because the model is absolutely gorgeous.
or you have 24 points and you want a blocker, and then you put in Zeb.
Exactly.
When
For
you can still put in actually a Z95, which is something else to consider, but that's I think its problem. You have a generic
I
filler ship.
don't think there is a light side upgrade. I can't find it if there is one.
I think it's announced in one of the new releases, so
That's a
let's not
different story altogether.
focus too much on it. I can't
Yeah,
remember myself.
Okay.
that's not.
So
A case in point that I want to a funny anecdote. Captain Rex's ability involves condition, suppressive fire, and technically the suppressive fire condition you can't even use it with him because there has
l-
been a horrible, horrible typo, and basically instead of within range of Captain Rex, they renamed him Caption Rex. So they
yes,
misspelled his name, and you can't. So he technically, rules as written, you can't even use the ability with him.
true. But let's not focus too much on this,
Yeah,
guys.
yeah. It was just a funny anecdote that I
Mm.
remembered.
The U wing has seen no changes, so let's move on. The Ghost, as you said, has seen quite a few reductions, and we now have three pilots which are hyperspace legal. So that's
Hmm.
an interesting addition for the rebels at hyperspace. Um, and Chopper is equivalent now to a generic, which is interesting and points
Exactly.
cost.
At that point, because I don't know why you would just go with the chopper instead of the Lothal.
Well, if you want two VCXs,
You can upgrade one to chopper.
yes. So you have one Chopper and one Lotel. That's why you
Mm.
would get
Exactly,
two of them.
exactly.
But I'm still not sure if this is enough. The YT 2400 has also gone down in points.
A lot of points.
Yes, quite a lot
If
of
I'm not
points. This is
mistaken,
the
it's one of the
interesting upgrade.
largest.
Yes, 6 points on Dash Render and 5 points on the other two, which is very impressive. Dash Render is now below 90,
Exactly.
and the other two are below 80, which is quite interesting for a ship
Dash.
which has a
That
4 attack and two
the
defense
bow
on a
tie.
large base
Arc.
and a bow tie arc. Yes.
And his ability is amazing, and the fact that for 99 points you can have him with the title.
Hmm. Yes.
I'm going to be testing this out quite a lot. I
I
like Dash
think
Render a
I
lot.
think this might be close to the sweet spot. It's either slightly too cheap or slightly too expensive, but I think they're close to making it work, which is good.
Mhm.
So
I
it
do
might
believe
need a
I
tweak
do
of
believe
one
he's
point here
still
and there, but
1 or 2 points too expensive. I actually think he belongs at an 83 or an 84.
it's a very good chassis. So
Maybe, but I'm always happy with erring on the caution.
yeah,
It's
Exactly, no.
better. He's just a bit too expensive. You playtest him, you figure it out, and you drop that point over time, and you
Oh,
make
I
him way
totally
too
agree.
cheap. And
hmm
No, no, I wholeheartedly agree. I just think that he just needs 1 or 2 more points until he gets to the perfect spot, is
mm,
all I'm saying.
so the Z95 stays as is, and I think we can go down to upgrades now.
Exactly.
With I believe no changes whatsoever except for
No
gunners,
gunners.
which have Bistan, Ezra, and Han Solo seeing a reduction in points. Four for Bistan, sorry, and two for the other two.
The Ghost and the Phantom titles are now hyperspace legal as well.
Considering that we have those ships becoming hyperspace legal, it does make sense.
Exactly. Exactly.
yeah,
And
and
much more
Sabine Wren is
interesting,
hyperspace legal as well.
you have Kane and Jarrus, which is hyperspace legal, Zeb Aurelius, which is hyperspace legal.
Essentially, they've made the Ghost crew hyperspace legal.
Exactly.
Not all of them. Hera isn't. Some of them aren't anyway. So
Yeah, that's true.
Fair enough.
Bistan at 10 is interesting. Bistan is an interesting gunner.
Yes,
mhm.
he's a very good gunner. His ability is very good. Um, but if memory serves, he doesn't give you a force point like the others did, right?
No, he doesn't. His
And
ability
he
is
was the same point as them, so that force point is why he went down by 4 and they only went down by 2.
no, no, definitely. Um, but it's, if I'm not mistaken, the only gunner that lets you do your bonus attack in the same arc.
Yes, you need to attack a different ship and be
A different
focused.
ship,
So
provided, yes.
you need to have not used your focus and all this. But yes, it's very good. You just want to take him with a perceptive
Perceptive
co-pilot.
co-pilot. Exactly. Ezra at 12 is interesting as well.
It's
He
very
is
interesting.
a nice. His ability is nice when you need to use it. It's not bad. It's not like a wasted ability that
Is the stress one?
yes, that
Remove.
you can spend a force. No, no, his ability is that you can spend one force point to do a shot out a different turret arc. If you're
That's
stressed, you can
right.
reroll one of the dice.
That's right.
Hmm.
But also, what's very important about Ezra is that he unlocks Maul also.
Hmm. Agreed.
As long as you have Ezra Bridger in a list, you can put in Maul on any of your ships. So
Yeah, that's right. Some
uh, for
interesting stuff.
for 24 points, you can end up having two force charges on one of your big ships.
Yeah. Well, 22 now.
Yes. No, 24 is still 12 and 12.
More or less 12. My bad.
Yes. Moving to the
And
Empire, guys.
yeah, that
Mhm.
concludes Rebels.
Rebels.
Yes.
150.
Here we go.
We have a decrease first and foremost on all the Alpha class Star Wings, which are not seeing much play in and on and of themselves, and it's just a 1 point decrease. But
Except the new squadron pilots. New squadron pilots have been seeing some play as well.
yes, it's
And
interesting,
that's why they
and
remained at 32.
yep.
Yeah.
And I think you don't want to go much cheaper than 32 on this
No, definitely not.
on this chassis, so I'm quite
I mean, you
happy
can
with
already
this.
fit 5 of them, the new squadron pilots, in a list, and they're pretty annoying to remove.
Indeed.
I actually saw a list with Lieutenant Karasabi and a whole bunch of. I can't remember whether they were Raw or News, but they all had auto blasters and the titles, and they were just shooting cannons for days.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
it was an interesting list. I can't remember how well it did. I think that particular game he lost, but because of a gamble he took which didn't pay off. But on a decent game, I can see it doing a lot of pew pew
A lot
damage.
of work. Yeah, for
Next,
sure.
next change is much more interesting if you want to go to it. It's the 1 point
Colonel
increase in Jandon,
Denden.
which I believe is done because of the reduction in points of red line, since the two synergize
Yes,
so well.
definitely.
So it's only a 1 point increase, but still, it makes a difference in the list.
It can,
And
particularly with Imperial lists that rely a lot on ace Imperial lists that would rely a lot on initiative. So that 1 point can make a huge impact here.
Yes. And Jendon had seen a resurgence in play with some cheeky lists like Jendon, Whisper, and Echo.
Hmm.
So yeah, I can see why he went up again all of a sudden.
Yep.
it's also semi-official now that Fantasy Flight prefer Darth Vader's shuttle pilots to the Emperor's shuttle pilots.
Yep.
Though, to be very honest, Kagi's ability is pretty nasty as well. The fact that he can suck all the target locks on it.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah, it can be
It's
a nasty surprise all of a sudden.
definitely.
Tie advanced, we have a decrease of 3 points. 3 points? 2 points, sorry, on the Baron of the Empire, and an increase of 1 point on the generic Inquisitor. Also, the Baron of the Empire, fifth brother, and seventh sister become hyperspace legal.
Yeah.
I personally like the change to the Baron of the Empire. You can now have a 6 of easily,
Yep.
or a 4 of and support ship. And with the reduction in missiles, it might be a very interesting little build to look at.
I'm just trying to
Indeed.
see what the difference in points was before. It was 35 and 30 for the Inquisitor and Baron
A
respectively.
five
It was a
point,
5 point We're spending 5 points for a force point, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're spending 8.
Yes, which is much
Yes.
more close to reality in my opinion.
Exactly.
Yeah, it makes sense. Basically, a force point costs about 10 points
Eight to nine,
Definitely.
8 to 10, depending on the
on the
chassis,
ship,
but
on the hull.
Exactly.
no changes to the Thai Advanced, which I think is fine.
Fair? Yes.
Uh,
No,
I
no,
would have I would have suggested that Vader goes up a point
but
or
quite
two.
a lot of ships are going down a point, so maybe staying where he is kind of making him a bit more expensive as well in and
I
of
think
itself.
Vader is supposed to be OP. It's Vader. It's just one of those pilots.
Mm,
Instead, they upped the points on the ships that normally fly with him. We'll see
yes,
later on.
I mean, if you compare him to, for example, because every faction has a couple of I6 iconic pilots. You have
Yeah.
Darth Vader, you have Anakin Skywalker for the Republic, you have
So, yeah.
Poe. If you compare them all to Darth Vader, he does rings around them, performance-wise.
he's also I
Uh,
think about 10 points more expensive than most of them,
Yeah, I mean,
uh,
already, for example, if you look at Wedge is 55 points.
and this is 12
Poe is
points.
67.
Yes,
Oh, is 67.
67,
yes,
and he
but
is nowhere as good as Darth Vader.
I think Poe is paying for his ship being better in inverted brackets, even though his pilot ability isn't.
his pilot ability allows him to do a double action, huh? Which
Yes,
isn't
Yes,
I
but
know, I
that
know.
bad.
but Vader has the most prized modification of all, Force.
Yeah,
Mm,
Force is undoubtedly the best modification out there.
yeah, no doubt.
And I honestly, and all Force users pay for the amount of Force that they have. And I think Vader, I think he's a little bit too cheap for his ability and the amount of Force he has.
I won't agree with that. He can
I'm not saying,
die
I'm not,
too quickly
listen,
compared to
I'm
I
not
mean,
a
saying he
lot
compare
of
comes
the
in
him,
ad.
at 78.
No,
compare
Or
him
I
to
whatever.
still
Anakin, his younger self. I think Anakin is 60. Correct me if I'm wrong.
will see soon
Um,
enough.
exactly. Um, Anakin Skywalker is 62.
62.
But then if
Yeah, so
you have to put the CLT or the 7B on him. And then if you want to get an R2 or an R4,
But you don't
you're
have
paying.
to. The same with Vader, you don't have to. The basic chassis of Vader isn't that much better than Anakin's, if you want to consider it better.
yeah, because Vader needs afterburners, and Vader needs at least the fire control system. So you're still clipping 8 points onto him.
At
So don't look
least.
at his 67.
But I mean, Anakin Skywalker, you need to do the CLT.
You
Let's
No,
say
don't.
you go
but
for the
play
cheap.
and to figure this out, what we need to do is play Anakin Skywalker against Darth Vader with upgrades,
And
which
and
never happens.
and also Anakin Skywalker has access to boost innately, and he can still do barrel roll boost, which Vader can't unless it's only twice per game, and then it's only boost barrel roll, which isn't exactly the same as Anakin who can do barrel roll boost or boost
Barrel
barrel roll.
boost.
I still don't think Vader is as impressive. Vader is impressive because of
Vader becomes disgusting when you staple those ship cards to him.
what was the
So
name?
you can't consider Vader to be 67 points because you never see him played at 67 points.
You
You
need
need to think of Vader as being
you need
75
afterburners
points.
because without afterburners, Vader becomes very, very fragile and very easy to outmaneuver, get in your sights, and kill off. He doesn't have an evade option. He just has his force and his focus. And believe me, he may look powerful, but catch him without the afterburners, and you will catch him.
Just agree to disagree. Because the fact that you need to tack on so many necessary upgrades on Anakin Skywalker to make him
I don't think
a decent ship
I don't think you need
is
to tack on so many. You just need calibrated laser targeting, which I
No.
believe
When
is
when you tack CLT on Anakin Skywalker, he's still cheaper than Darth Vader right now because the CLT is what, 4 points
5.
on
No,
Anakin?
he goes exactly the same, 67. But
Exactly the same. Okay, and
he
at
needs to be at
67,
he needs to be at
excuse me, if we're looking at Anakin Skywalker with the CLT against Darth Vader with no upgrades, Anakin Skywalker wins every time.
yep.
as I said, we'll agree to disagree.
Mm, I think you haven't flown Vader for quite a while, Marsh, so I think we'll agree that you are out of practice with Vader. And we'll move on. The TIE Reaper remains the same points cost, which is expected. I mean, Vermeil was seeing some play. It's seen some play as a support ship, mainly a
He's a
carrier of crew.
fair
Um,
off as well.
yes, and fair off as well, but I think mostly Vermeil because of his ability, unless I'm much mistaken.
To be very honest, most people were going with just the plain Scarif. 10
Because it's
points
the
cheaper.
cheapest. Yep, yep.
Yeah,
10
10
points cheaper
points
and
is
it
a
does the
huge
job.
difference. Yep.
yeah, because they're just
But
using it to carry a crew anyway.
no, I think we were
Exactly.
seeing more of the others because in hyperspace those were the only options in reality.
It was. That's the thing. But when you have an extended, for example, you were seeing lots of um, Sloan swarms with the Scarif-based pilot and 6 ships.
Yep,
Um, 4 ties and 2 interceptors.
agreed.
It it was it's a very cheap chassis and a I think it's a really good ship for the Imperials.
Hmm.
It's at a good place for what you're paying a decent amount of points and the right amount of points for what it can do.
Agreed.
Yeah, agreed.
TIE Aggressor, well, the TIE Aggressor, there's not much to say about it really, is there?
The
I mean,
Fantasy
It's.
Flight loves to
the
hate.
Steinar specialist needs to go down a point. Really badly needs to go down a point.
I don't think they'll do it because once it goes
They
down that
won't.
point, it becomes an 8 of possibility, and
Exactly.
I think it's staying at 26. 26 is going to be the
Yeah,
lowest
but
it
staying at
goes.
26, you're not seeing it. The only way you're going to see the TIE aggressor is an 8 of it.
Mm, I'm not
It's the
sure.
only way people would consider playing it.
Now you might see it seeing as the dorsal turret went down. You might actually see it a bit more because it goes to
Maybe.
28. 28 plus 12 is 40. That means you can put um,
5.
5, 4 maybe, or
You're
Yeah.
three,
thinking of the veteran
3 and
turret
something
gunner, no?
else.
Yeah, but if you're running 5 ships, you run 5 new squadron pilots with that upgrade and the auto blasters.
Yeah, definitely.
Hmm.
Uh, I feel so bad for the aggressor.
Yeah.
I think it's unfixable.
What I heard other people say, and I will echo it because I actually agree with it. I think it needs a TIE aggressor specific turret.
Probably yes.
Yeah, yeah, that was again from Gold Squadron podcast. Yeah, I was thinking the same thing as we were talking about it. It makes sense. Like
That's the
a
only way I
turret
can envision.
option with the words TIE aggressor only.
Exactly,
Something to make it playable.
Agreed.
like what the SFs have with their gunner, because they have their specific gunner, don't they? The
Yes,
TIE
they have
SF.
their specific gunner. So maybe when the TIE Aggressor is released in 2.0, we'll see
Maybe, yeah.
some use for it, or a specific turret, a specific turret gunner for it. We'll see.
Mm-hmm. We'll see.
The Punisher go down in points, I believe, by 1 point each. Yes.
Yes, 1 point each.
How I love the Punisher. Redline is such a cool ship to look at, and it's a cool ship
Yep.
behaviorally.
I think it's still playable, although much more expensive than it was at the start of second
Oh
Oh
no,
edition.
god.
definitely yes.
But
Hmm.
now I think it's close to being at the perfect point. I think if they're not there yet, maybe one more point change and that's it. They're done.
Yeah, and the action economy you can get out of these ships is just insane.
Yes,
Agreed.
I mean, at the end of the day, Redline with just fire control system and barrage rockets, for example, and maybe for brother, is not terribly expensive. I think
Yeah,
it's still under 70,
Hmm.
if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
It's still a good amount of points, a decent amount of points for what you're
I
getting.
will fully agree. But I am itching to go on to the next one, which is my favorite, the TIE Defender. And we have a 2 point decrease on all of them,
The named ones.
except the generics.
yeah.
And I think it's fair enough. It's a very good chassis, probably the best small ship chassis in the game by far, and I'm very happy at this point. I already think it was playable, and now I think it's definitely we're going to be working better.
Rexler Brath at 79 is very interesting.
Yes,
Yes.
an Initiative 5 defender, but also Vessery at 82. Huh? Now, remember
Vesri is still it.
he started
He's
the
initiative
addition
how
at
much?
88. He's
4.
Initiative 4,
Mm,
and he started the
very
addition
interesting.
at 88. So it's a 6 point difference now. I
Mm,
think he's getting, and his ability is amazing. The fact that he
it is,
actually get a target lock.
Yeah, he's just always locked. You spend the lock, you get a lock.
definitely. Uh, I did try once upon a time on the Fly Casual software. There is a specific game mode where you can actually have Darth Vader on a TIE Defender, and it
Mm.
was absolutely disgusting.
It's
Huh.
so disgusting. I don't even want to contemplate because then I don't know what point cost would you give him 150 points. I still don't think that's fair.
199. 199, so you can't even take any upgrades.
Moving on, we're in the realm of wish listing. It means we need to
Yes, yes,
move on.
definitely.
Suntir fell and the TIE Interceptor. Suntir fell goes up by 1 point. The rest of the TIE Interceptors go to hyperspace legality. I am not
Hmm.
sure the TIE Interceptor will see play irrespective, as
I
in
don't
hyperspace I mean,
either.
because the other builds, the other pilots are a bit too lackluster.
Um,
Maybe as blockers, like you used to run the March, the Alpha Squadron pilot as a blocker is interesting.
yeah, my Sloan Swarm, which I took to the Gold Squadron podcast, Space
Yeah.
Jam, having four of them, it's a ship that hurts when you punch,
Yeah,
and
Mm,
if
it
you
has.
manage to block with one of them, the other three are punching cards. So
Mm,
yeah.
yes. Mm,
you might.
However, did Sunterfeld need to go up by a point? I
Um,
mean,
The
is
I
Imperial
Sunterfeld
Aces
really
are
the same as
still the
few?
Imperial Aces are still top of the meta. Um, well, not top of the meta, but they are still seen in most top 12s. And
Yes,
a
I
1 point
understand
change
because
is enough
you're still
to.
seeing them at the top, true. But put Sunterfeld in a bubble with I don't know what other initiative six is 55 points or 54 points.
Wedge,
I,
Uh, Wedge. Wedge's ability is better.
but Sunterfell's ship is better able to
Is better. His
avoid.
dial is better. So maybe they should be closer to each other.
I
Fine.
don't mind. I don't mind. It's
I'll
close
be
to.
very honest. I think the 1 point all it's going to do is just eat into the bid a bit, and that's it.
Yeah.
Yes, and that's I think the whole point of it. It just eats a bit into the bid, and I'm not unhappy with it.
No, I think 54 is a decent points
Mhm.
cost for him. You
Oh
just
yes,
need
no, it's a decent points cost for him compared to other ships, I guess. Yeah. Fair enough. Okay. Convinced.
TIE Fighter. TIE Fighters are still the same. They never changed much, and I'm quite happy with them. A bit sad that Howl Runner still isn't available in hyperspace,
and the fact that they hiked his points as
but
well.
that was last points change. It went
Yeah,
up
yeah,
by
yeah.
6 points.
Last points.
But I think
I
it's
would have,
fair enough. She's definitely. Uh,
I would have thought that after they hiked up the points and then they saw that it was blasted into unplayability, that they would have brought it down maybe 1 or 2 points
Yeah,
towards
just
the
bring
end.
it
Uh,
down to 45. But
45 or 44. Maybe they'll do that next point change. We'll see.
Maybe
Um, the Phantom sees Whisper go up in points. I'm not surprised by this at all.
at all. No.
at
Whisper goes
all.
up by
No, another three
a
points on
whole
Whisper.
3 points, and she's seen play from from the first change in January of last year till now, and I think maybe we're getting close to her actual.
Starting
Yeah,
with
and the thing is,
52.
she's still in every single like top
Yep.
four build. Like the top four builds that are Empire have Whisper. It's
Yes.
like a crazy shit.
And
And the
now
fact of the
I
matter
think
is,
Echo will start being considered a bit more. A 9 point upgrade to get Echo instead of Whisper uh, is
there's
interesting.
one there's one daunting thing about Echo. You need to know how to position very, very well. And
Yes,
until you get to that point, I see a lot of players getting frustrated with them.
I
Yeah,
will
I think
agree,
that's why I
but
think in a lot of these lists you don't see Echo because already Whisper can, require too much thought in the middle of a stressful day, let alone Echo.
but now
And
but
let alone Echo with you can actually put afterburners on them.
Jesus Christ, stop.
Yeah, that's the sort of thing where you have to start thinking in like the seventh dimension and start to
Yeah, you're
pull
giving me a
into
headache making me think about it.
string
Stop.
theory.
so TIE Bomber stays the same. Not surprised. It's probably not seeing much play because aces are still the imperial favorites, and
Yeah,
uh,
unfortunately, that's the downside of Empire that they have quite a few builds, but their main two, the Sloan Swarm and the Aces, are so predominant you don't see anything else,
I'll
which is a
agree.
bit of a pity
But
because
hey, that means that players can do some interesting options in and of themselves. So
yes, definitely. There have been some lists with a whole bunch of Simistar squadrons because their bombing ability is pretty interesting as well, where you can sling bombs to the left and right.
mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Let's look at the TIE Striker, guys. The TIE Striker at downgrading points, sorry, a decrease in points for all of them, except Duchess, which goes up by 2 points. Having flown Duchess for ages and having her become a headache for most of my opponents who just evades perfectly every time, I can understand 42 points was way too cheap for her.
Yes, I
Yeah,
can understand that, especially when there are other TIE strikers at the time which were
And
cheaper than her,
and
which were more expensive
I
than
still
her.
don't understand how Countdown and Pure Sabak were more
were more
expensive than her.
expensive.
That
Where
is
were 44
something,
when she was 42. No,
yeah.
I think it's fair enough that she went up to 44 instead of them.
And they've
Which
gone
is
down to
the
43, so yeah.
which which is the striker that gives you an extra die
Pure
until it's
Sabak.
damaged? Pure Sabak.
Yes, but it's a two defense ship with no
No, no,
no
no,
shield,
definitely,
so damaging
definitely.
it is like super easy, and it's initiative 4, so
Yes,
you can damage it
yes,
before it
yes.
ever fires. So
No, no, but
it's a
it's
very
why
good ability, but it's not.
no, but it's why I was baffled that it was more expensive than Duchess, whose
Yeah.
ability is bonkers crazy. Um,
Duchess on that
I
platform is
I'll
amazing.
echo exactly what I said about the Reaper. The strikers are interesting ships because you're paying quite a good amount of points for um what they do because they're
Y-
adaptive ailerons.
But
You look at their dial and you're like, but the ship is so slow and it's not really maneuverable. And then you start using adaptive ailerons, and then your head starts spinning at how quick they can move.
yes, and
Mhm.
also you must consider that these cheap ships have access to bombs. So
Yes,
you can, i- if you put in one of these with bombs, it can make a huge difference. Not Duchess, but have a planetary sentinel with bombs. I don't know, seismic charges, 3 points, 34 point chip, just
I
controlling your how your opponent is moving. It's
I was
amazing.
actually playing about with it earlier. basically a bunch of planetary sentinels with proton bombs and skilled bombardiers, so you can put them a little bit further back. The
Yeah.
bombs that you want.
And if you're careful with upgrades, you can get close to a 6 off, so
Hmm.
not to be laughed at.
Yeah.
Definitely not.
The decimator stays as is. Um, I was expecting a point decrease here, at least to all except the named pilot, but it has been seeing some play. I'm not sure. I'm disappointed that this has not seen a point decrease. So, and I'll stop
On
there.
the named pilots, they could have gone down at least 1 point each, like they did on the other big ships for the other,
Yeah.
factions.
And
Yes.
for
If
Empire,
not on if not on Rear Admiral Mornaki and Icon, definitely.
Yeah,
mm,
I mean, Rear Admiral tends to see some play occasionally, so fair enough.
He's the main Sloan transport.
mm,
So I would 76 for him. I can see an argument for keeping it 76, but Mornaki and Icon, they should have gone down 1 point.
Yep.
definitely, I'm his ability is so much better than theirs. So, with
Hmm.
regards to Imperial upgrades, there is not much left to say. There is Fifth Brother, which goes up by 1 point, seeing that he's seen in almost every other Imperial build. I can understand
Yeah,
why.
every Imperial build where there's a gunner slot. So, yeah.
But I also agree, not agree, sorry, excuse me. I actually think they're trying to make Force upgrade like crew mostly because they're the only things that have Force, the
Mm,
biologicals. Um, that I think they want to try and standardize as much as possible Force because if I'm not mistaken, they're all roughly 12 points. Palpatine is
yes,
11. There's a few Vader, which is four.
Vader's 14, but Vader's ability is disgusting. So, yeah,
Exactly.
fair enough.
I think they're trying to standardize how much a Force point is worth.
Makes sense.
I think not standardize, but at least make it closer. And then if you have a better than
I think
average
it's still
ability,
Seven Sister, which is the cheapest force point at 9. So,
9, yes, I think she's the cheapest, yes. But
but her
then her
ability is
ability
not.
is very niche.
Yep,
Hmm.
You put her in because you're building a list particular to the sort of shenanigans that she pulls.
agreed.
Or if you're building a 200-point list and you've got 9 spare, and it's like, why not give a force point to something?
Fair enough.
Or you want to go thematic because you can put all Seventh Sister, Grand Inquisitor, Darth Vader, and Fifth Brother all on a decimator.
And having the Inquisition show up.
you, you have the
Yeah.
Inquisition, and then you can just put some Inquisitors in the V1s as
The
Why
rest
not?
of the
wingmen.
Inquisition.
No one expects the Inquisition.
Shall we move to the prequel trilogy, guys?
Yes.
Let's.
So we start with Separatists.
It's fine for me.
Okay, give me a moment.
Seppies. Let's see what the clankers have.
I am very happy with the Belbalab moving to hyperspace.
Yes, they needed it.
It was much more difficult than people would assume having the Belbalab out of hyperspace.
Yeah,
Basically,
because it was your main support chip.
It
it was the way to
was,
get the tactical relay in, because the other ones were the Sith Infiltrator, and there was like one bomber.
yes, so I'm happy with this change. Um,
Captain Sear stayed out of hyperspace, which is fair enough, because taken, so you still need to think about it.
mhm.
No,
The
fair enough. Very happy with that change as well. It's fair.
the Hyena bomber sees no changes. I'm not surprised. It's sitting very close to where it should, I believe.
Yeah,
No,
it's seeing lots
definitely.
of
The
play.
Nantex sees a huge points drop. Sanfek goes down by 9 points. I'm
Yeah.
slightly surprised by this, but and Snare has gone up by almost an equivalent amount of points. We'll get to that. Sanfek has gone down by 9 points. The other have gone down by 4, 5, 8 for the ace, and another
But it's a
8.
reasonable thing because they realized because they're currently in hyperspace ensnare isn't available. So they realized that without ensnare,
Yes,
these
they're
ships
not
are unflyable. So
almost
it made
unflyable, yeah,
sense to drop their points because they need to be cheaper if they're going to be flown without
and
ensnare,
get ensnare
and make
higher.
ensnare more expensive because with ensnare they're at the right points cost.
Yes, I'll agree to that.
Definitely. They're the equivalent to the every faction's A wing, Thai BA,
Hmm.
A wing again. They always have that one ship that's two attack Thai fighters, for example. They needed a ship like
Yeah,
that which wasn't swarmy like the vultures.
Hmm. The
Uh,
infiltrator sees a simple points decrease on O66, which is interesting.
hmm
And the hyperspace legalities stay the same. But now, much more interesting, the vulture droids. The vulture droids have seen a 1 point increase on the two cheapest ones, the Separatists and the Trade Federation. Considering these were dominating a lot of tournaments, I can understand why this happened, and I'm not that unhappy with it. Also,
the struts have remained the same.
yes, also struts have remained the
yes.
same, but it's considering a lot of time it's a 6 or 7 of the ship, it's a
Mhm.
6 point increase on a list. But
No, no, definitely. It's
So now your struts aren't an automatic take anymore. You're going to have to work for them.
yep,
definitely. And basically, they had one of two ways to go: either to increase the vulture and keep the struts the same, or keep the vulture the same and increase the struts. I like what they did here, where they increased the vulture, because in my opinion, I think it was the vulture that was more of a problem than the struts.
I
Yeah,
will agree.
Problem, I'm using air quotes at the end of the day.
Yep,
It wasn't.
a big
I
problem. It's still
mean,
a ship that
a
can
big.
easily be destroyed.
Yeah, and
yeah.
then they
It
was
just was seeing play over everything else in
exactly.
Yep,
It wasn't a problem like triple epsilons, for example.
true.
yeah.
Upgrades. And I
Oh,
think the big changes here are on tactical relays and
Which have
this
gone
is the
up 1 point, I think.
nope.
um,
TA175 has gone up by a lot.
TA175 has
Has
gone
it?
up by 2 points, not
Ah, well,
that
sorry,
much of a lot,
sorry.
but
I was reading
Two
something
points.
he
else.
was the one that was seeing most play, and Kraken behind him. I think they are very equivalent in abilities.
I think so. Yes, because Kraken lets you keep focus
Three
tokens up to
focus,
three,
calculates, sorry,
whereas
and
TA175, if one of your droids popped, would give you that free focus token.
Exactly.
So they're more or less equivalent.
yes, I like them. I'm agreeing with this change,
hmm
and the big change to Ensnare, which goes up by 9 points for
On the low initiative.
yep.
Yeah,
And
But this is what I said because Initiative 6 sees no change in points for Ensnare, so
hmm
Sunfac
Sun
has
fact,
gone down by effectively 9 points.
I really wish they chose a better pilot name for that, but
Yes.
it's gonna lead to some very awkward misunderstandings.
And
Um,
the final
but
change is the Belbalab going the Belbalab title going to hyperspace legality,
soulless one,
seeing that we have most of them becoming hyperspace legal. I can fully understand why this was so,
definitely.
and that
Let me
upgrade is
just
amazingly good. So
+2 hull while you defend if the attacker is outside your firing arc.
you may reroll one defense dice.
Now that's very good,
no, very good.
definitely. And I'll be very honest, you'll be very hard pressed to
Plus
see
to hull for six
a
points, it's already good enough.
a, a Bulbasaur without the soulless one.
So
Yeah,
yeah,
The only time you won't see one is if you really press for points.
or if you're running more than one.
Republic guys,
Yep.
Republic.
let's go. Republic. I think Greg will have a lot to say here. Oddball down by 1 point. No, 2
Yes,
points,
but
sorry.
you're still not going to be seeing oddball played because
Sinker is better.
and Wolf is better.
And Wolf
Is
is
better.
better, yeah.
I mean, the
Um,
only thing he has going for him is his initiative 5, and that's it.
Yes, it's Initiative 5 arc, which is nice, but let's be honest, you focus on an arc, it's going to go. It's only got one green dice, it's not reliable. You need that pilot skill for it to work. When you see the
yes.
arc run in Rebels, it's always Nora Rexley. Why? Because it just makes it so difficult to remove from the board. Now,
Agreed.
the Republic don't have any such way to make them beefier or harder to remove. Instead, you rely on either Wolf to make it killier, if that's a word, or Sinker to make your friends killier.
Exactly. Or
Is
enough target
clear the word,
saturation
so
that they have problems picking on the arc.
The only other way then is to take, like a bunch of 104 battalion pilots, and you're basically just doing a beef swarm,
okay.
which is
Hmm.
fine.
Are you guys sure you want to be wasting your time speaking on the arc when we can be talking about the Y Wing and the whole point decrease across the board that there are?
Yes, this is going to be very interesting.
So, yes, Anakin Skywalker at 55 points. Now,
Down by
it's a
5 points.
5 point decrease, which makes sense because at the end of the
Yes,
day, an Initiative 6 Y Wing is not an Initiative 6 Delta 7B.
definitely not.
So they should never have been the same points cost.
Hmm.
Or anywhere in the same
Um,
neighborhood.
I think going down on points across the board is important. And
Matchstick
yes,
and broadside.
and the ones that we're seeing play stayed the same, which I think is fair enough. This is fine.
Yeah, their abilities are good enough to warrant their points staying the
Uh,
same. Broadside's
And
ability is
all
great,
the
and
others went down by 2 or 3 points, respectively. So,
yeah.
yeah, for sure. And the generics went down by 1 point each.
And
mm,
now on to your depression and disappointment with this point change, right?
Yes.
yes. Why do
So,
Fantasy Flight hate Republic so much? I have no idea why.
On the whole, its point
Obi-Wan, Mace
decreases.
Windu, Plo Koon, all up by 1 point. Now, 1 point is not a huge change, but if you're going to run, all right, Obi-Wan is basically stapled to every single successful Republic list.
Hmm.
So I get why he went up, maybe not the others, but Obi-Wan I do understand. Now, it's only 1 point, sure, but they already struggled to get a bid. If you're
It's actually,
running
if you're running Obi-Wan with a Delta 7B, it's a 4 point. Sorry, it's a 3 point upgrade
Exactly, because the
because the
7B
Delta
went up
7B
by
went up by 2 points for
the
Initiative
7B went
5,
up as well, I
two
didn't even
yeah,
points
look
for
at that.
Initiative 5, and 4 points for Initiative 6, I believe.
Jesus
exactly.
Christ.
And
Exactly. That's why I'm saying Anakin is way too many points. He's 24 points to put 7B on Anakin.
but
Wow.
but if you put calibrated laser targeting, he's 67 points.
He wants
And
to be at range 1 of things. He
calibrated
needs
laser.
the ex he needs the extra, padding.
He's an ace which can
So,
barrel roll, boost, boost, barrel roll. I'm not sure that that is
I mean, at the end
entirely
of
the
the day,
case.
all right, look, so Anakin Skywalker, so before this points change, Anakin Skywalker had the Delta 7B stapled to him. Now he has the CLT stapled to him. Because before, the difference between him and Obi-Wan having them, Obi-Wan wanted the CLT because he uses that focus to get another focus. He spends a force to get another focus. So if it's shooting with the CLT, it helps his ability,
Yeah,
Yep.
definitely.
right? But Anakin, if you're flying him properly, you've got the bit for it, and you're just never getting a shot on Anakin. You want him at range 1 behind your opponent. That's where he needs to be the entire game.
He's
He
a
is a
bit like
very expensive. He is a very expensive 3 force Sunterfell.
very
Pretty much, yes.
expensive. See, I'm
You,
very
you
sorry.
need to fly him
I
like
would
that.
I would pay 20 points to get Sunterfell to have 3 points by far, and that would put him to 74 points, which would be more expensive than Anakin with. I'd pay definitely 20 points or 25 to get 3 fours on Sunterfell. So please
I honestly think that when
don't
there
make
was
me dream.
the regening Jedi was tough to sit through, and I as an
Look,
ex-Republic
I
player,
used to run that
I
list.
agree.
I used to run that list with Anakin, Obi-Wan, and sorry, I used to run the list with Obi-Wan, Plo Koon, and Rick Ollier,
Recall.
all of them with R2s. So I know what you're saying. I get it. It was
Yes,
disgusting.
yes, but I
Okay.
think they were too heavy-handed in their points adjustments
It's a
for them.
1 point increase. And actually, speaking of your list, your Ricola went up by 3 points.
I know. And the R2s last time went up by 3 points each as well. So that
Goodbye.
list is not playable anymore.
No, no, definitely
Forget
not.
it. Um,
Technically, Ollie's list of Empire that had Vader, Whisper, and Inquisitor is unplayable as well. Right now, it's
Yep.
way above 200. There's a lot of
Yes.
these big lists which are over 200, which you can't play anymore.
Mm-hmm.
yeah. I'm surprised why Mace Windu got the points upgrade. I can understand Obi-Wan and Plo Koon because they're initiative fives.
I think
It's
Mace
Mace that
Windu has
surprised me.
always been borderline to see play quite a lot because his ability is quite good.
His
He
ability
has
is
three
good,
fours.
and he has 3 fours, but he's initiative four. He can
Yes.
get outmaneuvered. He can get focused.
I'm not sure it's unfair the 1 point. We'll have to you will have to test it
It
out and
is
find out.
1 point, so it's not um, uh, an insurmountable obstacle. It's only 1 point.
What is much more interesting because we're getting locked down on
Yes,
this
yes,
complaining.
definitely.
Recollect.
Ricola, we've sort of mentioned we can
Yeah.
put it on to the fact that
I'm
this
actually
was seen in
surprised.
most lists.
Um, uh, Baby Anakin did not go up actually.
Yeah,
He,
Baby Anakin is also seeing lots of play. So Baby Anakin could very easily have gone up to 42, 44 points as well.
I'm not sure. He's good.
42,
Maybe
43 maximum, but
42, 44 is too much.
he
But
is
he
literally
was seeing a lot of play.
he is
Yes,
literally one of the best. He is the best blocker in the game.
I
Yeah.
would agree. But
Um,
remember, you're paying for a blocker, and while having a blocker is good, his job is to be in the way rather than to do damage, which is a better and more important job. So maybe not a point increase is understandable.
yeah,
Fair
maybe.
enough.
And it's still just a 2 attack to defense ship, so
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
let's not oversell what it does. The much
No,
more interesting change I was talking about is the V19 torrents, which have seen a huge point decrease
About 3 points down on each of them. Yep.
and
on
With the
most
there's
exception
of
of
the named except Tucker
Tucker,
and the
the
Blue
blue
Squadron
which went
squadron.
down
Protector,
two.
which went down by 2 and 1 respectively. The Gold Squadron stays at 25. I think we are close to seeing some play with quite a lot of these, not just.
Yes, and seeing the Blue Squadron Protector become hyperspace legal.
Yes, now we can see a Sinker Swarm in hyperspace.
Yes.
No,
I still think
Sinker
that
is
you're
not
not going to
hyperspace
see.
legal, sorry.
I still think you're not going to see any of the named pilots being played. I
Yes, but
think you're going
I,
to see a lot.
I, I don't think so either. Their abilities are just so lackluster. There's no reason to overtake them.
I do think that the blue squadron protector is very interesting at 26.
yes.
Yes,
The
you're
fact
going to be seeing those
the
though, for
fact that
sure.
it has a talent slot over the gold for
For
just 1 point difference.
yes,
And what are the initiatives, Greg, of them? Gold Squadron's 2 and blue is
The Protector is three.
3,
Three.
which is good because if you go up against, for example,
Most other
separatists,
swarms, yeah, most other swarms, you're going to outmaneuver
you're
them.
you're
But
you're you're
you're not going to outmaneuver them in Z19s for sure, because their dial doesn't allow you to outmaneuver a rock.
yes,
But
yes.
you will be out shooting them at least.
Mm, definitely. And let's not forget that there's also a synchronized console which exists. So
Yes, no, there's some options.
there's some options. They're going to be interesting. I think the biggest um, focus is going to be on the Blue Squadron Protector. Maybe you might see one of the named pilots just for flair or something of the sort.
Fair
But
enough. Shall we go on to
Of the named pilots, the ones you might see are maybe Axe, who can give a green token to a friend at 1 to 2 in his side arcs when he shoots or defends.
you can't really bet on it with that
Because it's
chassis.
it's just one green token. It's
It's
not going to
just
do
two shots
much.
away
You
from getting lost.
after you defend or perform an attack, you may choose a friendly ship at range 1 to 2 in your left or right arc. If you do, transfer one green token to that ship. You have to have the green token to begin
you
with,
need to
and
have a green token, and it's very situational. Also, situational is swoop, but swoop might make a swarm of these guys interesting because what it does is after a friendly small or medium ship executes a speed 3 to 4 maneuver, if it's at range 0 to 1 of swoop, it can perform a red boost action. So suddenly,
You
these
have
ships
boost
gain a
option.
boost action that they didn't have before. You might probably use it once in a game, but swoop isn't much more expensive. So if you have the points, it might be worth to just chuck him in there.
Fair
just
enough.
for that particular turn where you need it.
Yeah,
You're paying a 2 point tax for extra options.
yeah.
I think we can go to upgrades, which we've mostly covered. Um, uh, there are two astromechs which have gone down by 2 points. The R4P44 and the R4P astromech.
Indeed.
Uh,
Um, uh,
P44, it's nothing
it's now
to
at three points.
you don't see it used because its ability is a bit lackluster. After you fully
Mhm.
execute a red maneuver, if there's an enemy ship in your bullseye, you gain one calculate token. I mean,
Yeah, it's just
it's it's okay, but there are better
Is that the
astromechs there.
R4P44 or is that the R4P?
the P44 that
P44,
Okay.
the normal P. You
the
have two
only
charges.
ship that it's worth taking R4 P44 on is a Delta 7 with a CLT. And at that point, I think it's worth keeping them cheaper and trying to see how many more of those you can.
How much is a
But,
Delta 7?
but don't forget, it is
Jedi Knight is at 37 points.
a unique astromech, and I'd rather spend 2 more points to get the P17, where you
But
have two
but wait,
charges.
wait guys,
Agreed.
wait. You have 0 points on the Jedi Knight, is it? Or 1 point?
What are we
It's
talking about?
the CLT
Uh,
is
Yeah,
1 point on the Jedi Knight, right? Or it's
um,
2
three
if memory
points.
serves.
two, because the Jedi Knights are initiative 3.
0, 1, 2, 3. It's initiative 3, so it's 3 points. Or I'm mistaken. It's
No, it's
down
2 points.
here.
It's 2 points.
It's two
Hang
points,
on.
yes. It's 2 points.
CLT
2 points.
is 2 points. Yeah, I3, 2 points.
We've discussed the upgraded changes to Delta 7B.
Two Delta 7Bs, yeah.
I
Yeah,
think
And the CLT stayed the same.
we're
you
mostly
do
done.
get
We just have to name that the 7th Fleet Gunner and Synchronized Console are now
hyperspace.
hyperspace legal, which is
Hyperspace legal.
interesting to see these changes to hyperspace legality as we can now see some more
Mhm.
hyperspace builds available.
Yes.
Indeed.
Shall we move on to the sequel trilogy?
Let's.
Yep. Let's go for resistance.
The Fireball stays the same. I think
hmm
understandable. It's seeing some decent play. Considering it's
And
quite a quirky ship in and of itself.
and to be very honest, it came out just before the whole lockdown.
and it hasn't
situation. So
seen
Yeah, it
enough
came out
testing to.
recently, so for them to be changing the points already would be a bit odd.
Mhm.
the next thing
The Star
is what
Fortress is
the
down
Star
by
Fortress
quite a
a
bit.
lot.
That's
Um,
what, 2 points down on all of them?
Give me a
Yeah.
moment. 2 points down on all of them except the Cobalt Squadron, which is the generic at 1 point. I think, yeah, it's an interesting change, and
I actually managed to do a list where I had one bomber, Ray in the Falcon, and a third ship. So um, you can get two
So,
big ones and one small one in a list, which is interesting,
there
very
are some
interesting.
of the named pilots which have some very interesting abilities.
Hmm
Did
yes,
Um,
and you could very easily fit a trio of build with these ships
yes.
if you wanted.
definitely, if
I'm
you
not at
want.
all surprised that the resistance transport and the resistance transport pods, changes. Quite a few of them were being used.
I'm
The
actually surprised that the fin in the transport pod hasn't gone up to like 190 points or something.
Yes,
He's pretty nasty, isn't he?
but
Exactly.
on the other
He's a
hand,
big deal.
He's a
yes,
big deal. He
ZZ
is,
Law goes up by 1 point.
yes, though, to be very honest, I think it's an inconsequential points increase.
Yeah,
Um,
it's just going to keep on seeing play.
I think so,
He
yeah.
is such a good A wing. Such a good A wing.
And another interesting point change is the Falcon going down with 2 points
Hmm
on the three named pilots and 1 point on the generic. I think we might be seeing a Falcon and Bomber list with something else, as you said, quite more often now, Marsh.
And I am surprised, though, I am still surprised to see Ray go down in points. The same as I'm surprised seeing Han Solo go down in points. They're both pretty good ships, and they both see play.
Yes, but they're not amazing ships and they don't see so much play. So I think big ships need to go down a bit in points in this
Uh,
new edition.
The Han and Ray resistance, they are inferior to, for example, Rebel Han
Hmm.
and Rebel
Oh,
Lando.
yes. I'm not
So
disagreeing with that. I do understand why I mean, even the ship in and of itself, if you're looking at just the ships, they're inferior to the Rebel version.
But
So I
Ray at
understand why the
68,
basic
guys.
Rebel light freighter is 67 and why this one is 59. I get it.
the problem, not the problem, the what people think is the problem with Ray is they see the entire package of Ray, where you have
Yeah, the entire
Finn,
package is very
Page,
expensive.
um,
Finn.
Holdo. Each one
Sorry,
of
Page
those
and.
ones is 10 points.
Hmm.
So you're tacking on an extra 30 points to that 68, 98 points.
But
Yeah,
it does
I do
work. It
understand.
So
It's
does work.
basically the same argument we were making for Vader, so I get it.
Yes. The X-Wing sees 2 point decreases and a loss that goes to hyperspace legality, which I think is fair enough. I don't know why he was excluded. Maybe it was a typo then.
it's you didn't hear it from me, but I think it's something racist because I think Atsi. No, that's never mind. I thought it was Nien Nub. I was gonna say
No.
because Nien Nub is the only alien X-wing pilot.
Fair enough.
My mistake.
But that is Niannam, not a Loazzi. But anyway, yeah.
Exactly, my mistake. But
Yeah, well, maybe they were taking a leaf out of the 40K handbook.
exactly. But
But
Poe
Poe
going
down
down
by
by how
one
many
point,
points?
one, and 2 points
It's
for Joff Sea Striker.
it's a bit of a yes. We heard you that you want a points decrease on Poe. Here's 1 point. I think I'm not going to say insulting because that's a very strong word, but a 1 point decrease when he's 12
Insignificant.
points 12 points above Atsi and Nanyab is too much.
Hmm. I think he needs to go down to like 65 or 64 points, and then we'll start
Definitely.
talking about him.
Then yes, I agree because
Let's say 65. Then his 10 points more. He does it. Fair.
exactly because initiative 6 and a double action is worth 65, but
Yeah.
still a bit too much.
Hmm.
Joff Sea Striker, that's such a cool pirate name.
Yes, but I don't know if the 2 point decrease will mean that he
That is
sees
going to see any play.
much play at all.
I mean, the only
Um,
people I know who have been in it, who I know of because they've been in lists, are Lieutenant Bastion
Mind you, he's
and
interesting. Yeah,
Jessica Parva.
after you lose one shield, gain one evade token, which is not a bad ability at all.
Yeah,
Uh,
but on an initiative 3 ship that doesn't want to be beefy, it wants to be killy. So
True and not.
maybe,
It's
maybe. I
beefy.
don't know.
4 hull 3 shields
Uh,
to evade with
One thing
access
I
to
am
heroic.
definitely not is a resistance player.
I
So
don't know. It's
maybe.
interesting.
the problem with X-wings is that if you're going to be doing damage to them, you're going to be doing more than 1 point of damage to them unless you roll really
Most of
badly.
the time, yeah.
So
Mm,
his ability is going to proc maybe once, twice if you're lucky,
Hmm.
which I don't think it.
yeah, he'll run out of
Um,
shields quickly, you're saying, eh?
exactly. It's the
Definitely.
same problem as quick draw. Quick draw, once his shields go, his ability is useless.
Yeah.
Sea Striker has the downside of being lower initiative and low. No, he has the same agility, but he's more likely to be shot at than quick draw.
Yeah, for
Agreed.
sure.
And
Besides, quick draw's ability is going to make people think twice about acting. Right?
with respects to
Yeah, because
upgrades,
he shoots back.
Yeah.
we're going to be talking about quick draw soon, don't worry. Regarding upgrades, the ferrosphere paint is marked as being changed, but in reality it was changed last points update, so
Stay the same.
stay the same. And 5 points is interesting, but slightly too much for what it
It
does.
BB became hyperspace.
Yep, the BB
Yes,
Astromech.
BBS
Yep.
Stromag became hyperspace legal. Again, more options than hyperspace is good because they limited hyperspace way too much last time.
Yeah, it got
Yeah, for sure.
stale really quickly.
Yes. First
So,
order.
first order.
Now here there are quite a few interesting changes. First
I
and
am so
foremost,
surprised by the changes here already.
the TIE
I mean, the ships
Interceptor
have just
goes.
been released.
Uh-huh, but they did first order first of all were doing very impressively in most tournaments, and the TIE
Hmm.
Interceptor was underperforming to what they expected. So this is very interesting. Major Von Reg down by 2 points
It
at
it
55.
came out. It came out with the fireball and the amount of times you've seen the Thai BA compared to the fireball is like a 3-to-1 ratio. So they were able to recognize that it was paying a bit too many points for what it was doing.
Yep,
Fair enough.
it evaporates way too quickly for its point cost, and this is very interesting anyway.
Hmm.
At the -2 points on Major Von Reg, -1 point on Holo, -4 points on the other two. I
4
mean,
points on Ember.
yes. But Ember was seeing no play whatsoever, so I can
Yep,
understand
yep.
why.
I
The
don't even
Taya
know the.
foe stays the same, and
Yes, and then we get to quick draw.
Quick Draw goes up by 2 points, and I'm honestly not going to complain. His ability is amazing, and saying anything else is like.
Yeah, and it's an initiative 6 pilot at less than 50
And
points
actually,
already.
Quick Draw goes up by 1 point if you consider the fact that the Special Forces Gunner has gone down by 1 point. So,
Yeah,
Didn't go
fair
down
enough.
by two.
by one, it's 9 points now, no? We'll see in a
Yeah,
bit.
it was
No.
10.
It was 10, not 11. Check downstairs what it
Yes,
says.
-1. All right.
Yeah,
Yes, my bad.
it's
Ah, yeah.
okay.
Sorry, because it was the math. Because I remember there was a 2 and a 1, and I just switched round.
Lieutenant Lahew's
Which
down by 1 point. I'm not sure it needed to go down. I liked it. It's a very good ability that it can use the target lock from some other ship to reroll. So
and he's initiative 5.
initiative 5, indeed.
Hmm.
I like
The
it.
fact that it went down, it's quite baffling to be very honest.
Very
Hmm.
cheap initiative 5 ship.
It is.
The
And then we've got the generic
silencer,
silencer,
which goes down to 48 points.
3 points
You can put
decreased.
you can do a list with the three of these Sanar Jameis and either Von Reg or Hollow with Daredevil or Proud Tradition,
Yep,
whichever you want.
this is going to be interesting. It
So I think
seems,
you're more likely going to see two of these and
yes,
other things rather than three or four.
I will agree. But hey, a 4 of is now possible, so
Yes,
Yeah,
interesting.
because they're still chunky ships for what they are, and with chunky
Mhm.
ship with 3 green dice and 3 red dice is always nice.
it is exactly the same thing as that Sloan Swarm I was flying with Initiative 1 Interceptors. If you pumped the Interceptors with
Yeah,
steroids,
yeah,
because they are much beefier. All
Yes.
you need is to send one as a blocker and three to pummel the other guy.
absolutely.
Upsilon class shuttle stays the same. I mean, not much surprises there. And now we'll go on to the upgrades, which I think sees only a change in Special Forces
The
Special Forces.
Foundation,
SF1. Yeah,
which goes down by 1 point, as I said, which
Hmm.
effectively means that all the TISFs have a build which goes down by 1 point, while Quick Draw actually effectively is only going up by 1 point. So,
Exactly.
agreed.
and now we'll come to
And
the
now,
biggest faction.
last but not least, scum and villainy.
Yes, by far the biggest faction. Want to take a 2 minute break, guys? I was going to get
Sure, sure.
a drink here. If you
Yeah,
want to
same.
start without me, feel free.
I'm actually gonna go get a glass of water as well because I'm feeling a
We've
bit
Yeah,
been
fair
parched.
enough.
talking
I'll see
for a
you guys in a
couple of
bit.
hours. I am back, guys.
Hello. So Marsh hasn't returned yet, but I was thinking it might be interesting, since we're planning to try and do this as a weekly thing.
Mm-hmm.
That one thing we could consider for next week, Rona, if you're up for it, is that each of us come up with a list for each faction that includes at least one ship that changed the points.
I think we should limit ourselves to one or two factions. So let's say we limit ourselves to the original trilogy and do and discuss the different builds for that that one. Because
Or I
otherwise,
guess there are 7 factions right now.
hmm
We could do 2 factions each and then whatever.
I like the plan. We'll definitely discuss something of the sort.
Cool.
But we could also change to some other game system next week, discuss something related to some other game system, and then
Yeah,
move
could
back
do.
to X-Wing the week after.
Absolutely. I'm just going through my lists. Currently, my Jedi and Recollet list went up to 208 points.
So that's slightly over, isn't it?
Slightly.
Mm.
All my Republic lists are suddenly over. Jesus.
Ooh, my all sixes list stayed the same. Actually, it's 1 point cheaper. For first order, I'm happy.
Isn't that nice?
I'm at an 11-point bid now rather than just a 10-point bid.
Hello.
Hello, Marsh.
Hello.
So,
So
let's start with scum and villainy. The IGs go down in points by 1 point
Hmm.
each, which means that you can easily have a trio of now of
Yes,
almost any
definitely.
you like. So
Trio with some
maybe
upgrade,
maybe we'll be seeing the IGs again. Um,
perhaps.
what is the name of the talent, the title for the IGs? The IG
IG
2000
2000.
title is 1 point, so
Exactly. So
they
you could.
get each other's abilities, and that's quite interesting.
Also, don't forget the IG 88D crew cards where it does the same thing to any ship the crew is on.
Yep. Yes, I fully hear what you say, and I think we will be seeing the
Maybe,
IGs a bit more. Maybe
exactly, maybe two and a third ship.
is
yeah,
very doable. The Y wing stays the same. Same discussion as we had for the rebels.
Mhm.
I'm very surprised with the next one. This has seen a huge points decrease, and it was already by far the cheapest large ship of them all.
yeah, a 6 point decrease.
Han Solo at to 48 points, that's a 6 point decrease, a 7 point decrease on Lando, another 6 point decrease on L337, and a 5 point decrease on the freighter captain. That's huge.
Hmm.
I
But
think,
they needed it. It was
I mean,
unplayable.
at the end of the day, the difference here and huge is that it's only got a 2 red dice. That makes
yes.
Yeah,
And it's a
because
large ship with one evade, so
yeah,
one evade, and the only way to make it punchier is by putting the title on it and by taking Han Solo.
but I don't know if you guys realize what this means. This means a 4 of is possible with this build.
yep.
Yes, but I don't know how it is possible, but I don't think it's. I mean, it's a lot of Hull and shields, sure, but it's gonna each one's gonna go down very quickly.
Yes, yes.
I mean, what we always need to be afraid of with big ships is the problem we had with the Upsilon shuttle.
Hmm.
That for some people, the Upsilon shuttle, the trio, was never a tournament winner. It just wasn't fun for people to play against.
Exactly.
And that's what you need to be afraid of with lists like this.
Hmm.
Something which is also interesting is the fact that Han and L3 became hyperspace legal, and also Lando on the escape craft is now hyperspace legal. So,
Exactly. One thing you have to consider for this ship also is that the escape craft, the ability carries over to
onto
the
the big
actual
ship, yep.
the big ship. So while it's not necessary, a lot of people do take the 30 odd points to have the extra ability, and the fact as well is that its shield can be taken off the escape craft.
Yes. I don't know,
Oh,
it's
that's cool. I wasn't aware of that.
hmm
So technically, it has 5 shields.
but it's a
Yeah.
30-point upgrade or a
30-point upgrade,
28,
but
29
It gives
it's
you
point
an
five
upgrade.
shields and an additional ability.
It
That's
gives
fair
you
yeah,
two
enough.
more shield and additional ability, and once it's destroyed, it gives you another ship. So,
exactly. Um, yeah, but the problem that people used to have with this ship was that there were lots of moving parts, which needed a lot of getting used to align everything properly.
but I don't
Because
mind that, Marsh. I think this is one of the nice things about X-Wing, is that there is an actual learning curve, and you can feel yourself
no,
improving.
it's not it's not the fact that during the game there are lots of moving parts. It's during the list building there's a lot of moving
Mm,
parts, which means that you need to tack on a lot of points onto the ship to actually.
Yes, yes, I hear you, but this is scum, and all scum lists are quirky that way.
Yes,
which is the
yes,
nice
yes.
thing about the faction.
No, no, definitely. But like I'm saying, it's you need to get the escape craft, and then you need some upgrades, and then you need this and that.
Yeah, there's always a lot of thought that goes into a
The
scum list. It's
the
the scum have never been one of those. Let's just take 4 X-wings. It's fine. It will work.
And
It's
yes, yes.
never worked that way for
and
What
scum.
I mean is, that 48 points for Han Solo is a bit deceptive in the fact that you need a lot of extra points to
yes,
To make
make
him
him
work.
viable.
agreed
Yeah.
completely. But also, guys, remember that Scum have the added disability or disadvantage that they don't really help each other out. It's
Oh,
mostly each
definitely,
ship for out for its own.
definitely,
And
and it's a cool concept.
speaking of that, most of the next two ships stay the same for the Fang Fighter and Fire Spray, but Boba Fett goes up, although by just a point, and I'm surprised that it's just a point here.
But you're going to have to look at not just Boba Fett,
The Slave
Slave
but
one.
1
Slave One.
upgrade goes up by 4 points, but we'll get to that. I
Mhm.
think it's fair enough on Boba Fett.
Speaking quickly about the Fang Fighter, I'm glad you touched. I think they are like the Y Wings at the perfect points cost that we've seen
Yeah,
Yes.
almost all of them used.
except for this Joy Rekov, I've never
Joy and Cad, but you're seeing the others.
exactly. Oh, Terok, you see him in some lists. Fen Rao, you see him quite a lot of them. He was actually Baba's sparring partner in a lot
For a
of
while,
Dengar.
yes.
Yes.
And even Zealous recruits and Skull Quadrant pilots, you're seeing them in some lists also. No, I'm happy they didn't touch them.
Generics. No, no, in my opinion, they are good where they are.
I will completely agree with you guys. And the G1A Starfighter also remains untouched. I think it's also at a good point. Um, and the Hawk sees a couple of pilots go down in points, which is understandable considering how little play it is seeing in and of
Yeah,
itself.
the only one of those that sees play is Torkul Mux anyway.
Exactly.
And
I
he
think
stayed the same.
reducing the others doesn't mean.
And we see that the Jump Master remains the same. It's quite cheap for what it is. And I still think
Exactly.
Fantasy Flight are afraid of the Jump Master after
Triple jump masters.
the
Um,
Jump Master problems with first edition, which they could not get rid of no matter how much they hit it. It was as if the nerf hammer did nothing to it.
mhm.
I
The
mean,
key,
however, let's be honest. The current like killer list was Boba Fett and Dengar.
Yeah.
yes,
So the Jump Master is clearly doing something right.
No,
yep,
definitely.
it's still a
Um,
good chassis. It has a nice dial for a large ship, so
it's really strange that the people you used to see most were Dengar, the most expensive Initiative 6, and Nom Lan, the Initiative 1 and the cheapest one. The
Yeah,
ones in
yeah.
the ones in the middle you would never see.
you either
And
go for
often
the cheapest or for the best.
and often time Nom Lan would actually have Dengar crew on him, so Dengar was in the list some way or somehow.
Yeah, that's true.
The key rock stays the
Kirax,
same. Not surprised by that at all.
Fair enough. It's basically their X-wing.
Yes, and I
pretty
think
much.
it's also quite well costed as it is. The Lancer sees a substantial point decrease, with Ventress seeing a 3 point decrease.
Same with no Ketsu saying a 2 point decrease.
To Sabina, 2 point increase, and the Shadow Port Hunter, a 1 point increase. I think this is
Decrease.
another big ship. Sorry, increase decrease. I meant. This is another big ship which might be getting close to seeing some play.
Hmm.
There is a playable list with it, but it was one variation of a list. And the
Yes,
list only really worked as an anti-meta list when 4 Phantoms was a thing. So
which it
since
no
they
longer
went
is.
away, so did really this list. So fair enough.
And to be very honest, the Lancer Pursuit Craft, its main it's a good ship, don't get me wrong, but its main quirk is lots of tractoring,
Hmm.
tractoring shenanigans. And since they added the stipulation that you can rotate with a stress if you're tractored, these ships have kind of gotten a bit of a a hit because of it.
Hmm.
Fair enough. I didn't consider that. That makes sense.
So I see the reason why they lowered the points cost as well, because um, between that and now, you will barely see it. The only people who used to
Hmm.
play it is because they used to like the ship, which,
Fair
in my
enough.
opinion, is the nicest scum
Great
ship
ship.
there is.
Fair
Yep.
enough.
So
Kimogila,
stays the same.
um, we barely see it being played though. So I don't. I think it's a ship that's good at its points cost, but
I
unfortunately, there are better options.
the scum have quite a lot of options, so rather than it not being good, I think it's suffering from the fact that there are so many other things
The
that do what it
saturation.
does, and the people are more comfortable to use. For instance, I don't know, the Fang Fighter, which can do a similar job but is perhaps more reliable because of its
Definitely,
maneuverability. So,
it's an
the,
interesting ship,
yep,
but unfortunately, there are better and safer choices out there.
Yeah.
fully agreed. The
The
M3A
M3A.
Interceptor and the Tile Land Fighter stay the same. They are both Horde swarm lists. So,
I'm glad they did not touch the M3As, because
yes,
quite frankly, the
They're
swarm
good. They're good.
the swarm lists that they have
it's a good one,
were
yes.
They're good. With four M3As and two Fang Fighters in a list. Nasty.
Yes.
yes,
The
and the
quad.
fact because you could take a cannon slot with it because it has the
Yeah.
Mhm.
same thing as the resistant X-wing has, that you can take either a missile, a torpedo, or a cannon.
Yep.
Yep. The quad jet has seen a decrease in points with Constable Zuvio and Sarcoplank seeing a 3 point decrease in points.
So now that Marsh mentioned it, it's probably for the same reason. It's that, it inadvertently got nerfed alongside the tractor toe.
Yes. And something to take into account is the fact that this is the ship I was mentioning that gets access to targeting synchronizer. And maybe it's a potential use and a potential synergistic use in Scum that
Hmm.
can be considered.
Could
Interesting.
be.
Yeah.
It's the only scum ship that can take a tech, isn't it?
Yes, it is, because it's the only Scum ship that comes from the sequel still now.
Hmm.
Interesting.
The Star
Hmm.
Viper stays the same. It's quite a good ship. I think it's
Uh,
fair enough.
a
I've
second,
missed
we
the
forgot
Skrg bomber,
the
yeah,
Skirk. Hmm.
which sees Captain Nim go down by 1 point. Not really a
Same.
relevant change, I think, and maybe we'll see some more play. On the whole, it's a good chassis, an interesting chassis, but we'll see.
I think that they are very scared of reliving the dark times of when he
Yes,
used to
the
have,
Dangar Captain Nim times, right?
yeah, the Captain Nim, well, the Nim Miranda, when
Yes,
Nim could
Yeah.
be taken onto
These ships are
rebels.
still on timeout from back then.
Yeah,
yes.
so I
They
can
know what
understand
they
their
did. They know why they are on timeout, and people are not at all sorry that they have not seen the light of day
exactly.
yet again. The YV666 sees some reduction in points and becomes hyperspace legal, and the Z95 Hunter becomes hyperspace legal. I think this makes sense. And
Except for the cheapest, the Binary Pirate,
yeah,
still not hyperspace legal.
But I think if you look at the other hyperspace builds, any of the generic versions of ships are hyperspace legal.
quite a few aren't. So yes,
Yeah.
Hmm.
and
Just
Definitely.
thinking about the torrent, for
and
example.
I
Again,
think
the generic with no
trying
talent upgrade.
they're trying to avoid having scum swarm become a thing because in hyperspace there's quite a few swarms already. So
Yeah.
Although the Cartel Spicer Spacer, sorry, the M3A is hyperspace legal.
Yep.
Yeah, but that's the point. You've already got the options. You don't need more, of
Exactly.
course, how to do swarm. You know.
Which is
No,
what I
definitely, yeah.
was, what I meant by it. So yes,
hmm Um, you left out because you started it, but because you stopped because of the Skirk. Star Viper, no
stayed the
changes,
same, and
and
I
it's
think
good.
we're quite happy with Star Viper having no changes. I mean,
Yes.
it
Guri
works.
was another running mate of Boba Fett as well.
Yeah.
So it's good that they haven't made her cheaper or anything, because she's a good points cost for what she does.
Yes. And finally, the scum upgrades. We see very few changes here. There's Bosk, which becomes hyperspace legal and goes
And
down by 1 point.
hmm
Um, Houndstooth is hyperspace legal now, and the Millennium Falcon is hyperspace legal. Considering that they are both, the ships have both become hyperspace legal, this makes sense. And as I said, there's the 4 point increase to Slave One, which we all I think agree is very necessary at this point.
no,
Yes.
definitely.
So
For 1 point, it was um too powerful.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
Because
and
don't forget
combined
when
with Boba's ability.
it first came out, I'm not sure if you guys remember it, but it had the thing that you could do the ability, but they didn't take a stress.
Hmm.
And then they removed that and left the points cost, and now it's back up again, which is good
Yes.
Yep.
because it's Boba Fett is strong, but the Slave One multiplies it, and keeping it at increasing Boba's points cost and keeping Slave One would just mean that Boba would be replaced by someone else. Aemon Azamine, Cat Scarlet.
Yeah, for
Yes,
It
sure.
it wouldn't
definitely.
really be solving the problem, it'd just be shifting it to someplace else.
Completely and totally agreed. I think that's it. We've managed to go through them all. 2.5
We have
hours
indeed.
almost later. Well done, guys. I think we need to make sure that next podcast we limit ourselves a bit more. We will try and have a time limit and
Yes, definitely.
and keep to it.
Definitely,
But
yes.
this was quite interesting, and I think we
It
should
was, it was.
definitely be doing it again.
It was fun, yeah, for sure.
Just out of curiosity, was there any points changes for huge and epic
Ah,
stuff?
I did not have a decent look at them. There were some points changes. Um,
Epic and huge ships.
Seems to be.
yes, there definitely was.
But there doesn't seem to be any points changes, so. And even if
Mm,
there was, I wouldn't be able to tell you what's what. So
Well,
we don't
I
play them
don't think so,
enough.
because I was
now I'm checking it here. Now I have the PDF up. It's
Hmm.
on the screen.
no, I'm seeing it on the screen, but I was following the points changes from
Ah,
on the app, and I
okay.
didn't notice any huge ship changes.
I think it does make sense that huge ships stay mostly the same.
Exactly. Guys, if you want, we can shoot the breeze for 30 minutes and then we can watch the Fantasy Flight in flight report live.
Uh-huh.
Yeah,
We'll
I'm
do
joking.
what
It's
for 30 minutes?
Shoots the breeze.
it's 1:30 in the morning, and
Yes,
I
I know,
need
I know.
to.
Jesus. I start work in 6 hours, so good night.
Good night, both of you. Good night,
Yeah,
everyone. Thank you for
good night.
joining us,
Thanks for
and
listening.
Ciao.
see you next time.
All right. Ciao, ciao,
Ciao.
guys. Bye.
Ciao.
See you.